You're my first veterinarian on the show.
Yeah? Your first veterinarian?
Veterinarian. What's it like being on social media as one who has to take care of other species outside of humans?
I'm almost at a disadvantage, especially on social media, because of my credentials.
Do you think there's certain breeds of dogs that should be banned?
Ooh, this is so controversial. I have opinions.
How does one know how much to feed their animal?
The back of the bag will kind of have a guideline.
And those are accurate and valuable?
Well, no, right?
Oh, okay.
Since we've been doing vaccines, now more pets are getting cancer. Yes, more pets are getting cancer now because not only are they living longer, we're also able to diagnose it.
If your cat or dog is overweight, is it always the human's fault?
Imagine if you got a mosquito bite and 6 months later there was a worm in your heart. I'll never forget, I had one dog. She was a year old. Her human loved her. He brought her in because she was ADR, right? Ain't doing right. He was crying next to me as I'm helping this dog pass and relieving her suffering. And he just kept saying, like, this is all my fault. This is all my fault. This is all my fault. And I told him, after the fact, and I said, don't beat yourself up too badly. In her honor, you will never, ever forget to give another dog heart preventative,
right.
And you will tell your friends.
I'm accused of being a vaccine shill all the time. But did you know the same allegations are being thrown at your local veterinarian? Doctors who treat humans aren't the only ones battling against misinformation. Today's guest, Dr. Sylvalyn Hammond, is known online as the Honest Vet. She's amassed millions of views of the day-to-day life she has treating dogs, cats, and even the occasional cow. I assume Dr. Hammond and I would have completely different experiences in healthcare, given I treat creatures with 2 feet and she mostly treats creatures with 4. But I was surprised to learn how much we actually have in common. Ozempic cats, anti-vax dogs, and people who insist on the health benefits of feeding their animals raw milk. So I invited Dr. Hammond onto the show for a deep dive into topics like pet food and banning dog breeds. We also got a bit personal when I asked her to help me figure out what exactly went wrong when my sweet girl Roxy lost her leg at the vet a few years ago. No matter how exotic your pet, whether it be a cat, dog, or sugar glider, I promise Dr. Hammond has some insight for you, starting with what being a veterinarian is really like. Your job is hard, not just in your day-to-day practice, but fighting on social media all of these trends that are happening in the world of animal medicine. I'm going to stay away from veterinarian. I'm still saying it wrong. But in all seriousness, what's it like being on social media as one who has to take care of other species outside of humans?
So I guess the best way for me to explain it to you is kind of just being a pediatrician, right?
Oh, okay.
Because
I've said that before and I've gotten some weird faces.
Well, it is because the animals are like the children and they don't get to consent to treatment or not. They don't get to approve or deny what you do. And you have to have the parent or owner or pet guardian or whoever be willing to do the treatments that are necessary or the follow-ups and all those things. So I always tell doctors, it's like being a pediatrician, because not only do you have to care for the patient, but you also need to be really, really good at communicating and educating the client or the parent, sure. Right? So that's the best way to make it make sense. And it's tough in this age of social media and the internet. And it's just the Wild West out there. Yeah. Anybody can get a fancy microphone and some lighting and put together a really, really good looking piece of content and say something extremely controversial, and it's going to go viral.
Yeah. And
that content, what's on that content could be so false and so just harmful potentially, but people don't know what to look for. They don't know what to watch out for. The person on screen looks very confident. What they're saying makes sense because the people who are listening to it don't have a background in medicine. They don't understand. They can't see all the holes that we can see. Right. And then it's already got, millions of views and shares and clicks, and the damage is done.
Yeah.
Right. So being a veterinarian or a doctor on social media, it's hard right now. I do feel like we are kind of losing the war with misinformation a little bit.
Do you feel like the vet organizations are doing a good job trying to enter this space, or not really?
I think we could be doing more.
Okay.
There are a lot of veterinarians like myself who are really putting ourselves out there, who are making content. We are trying to bust myths and also just present information in a easily digestible way, and just trying to get in front of it a little bit. But I do feel like most of the time we are on the back foot, right? Most of the time we are trying to reverse damage that is done, and that's so much harder than trying to get in front of it. So I do wish some of these bigger veterinarian organizations or veterinary organizations or whatever would also be more involved on social media and things. But right now it's really just,
what do you think they're afraid of? Because in the human side of things, the organizations have been late to the game because they said we should be only talking at medical conferences and medical journals. Is that the same world?
It is very similar. Yeah. And I can see their point. There's a huge argument about it's not professional to be a veterinarian on social media. It's hard, right?
They say that in human land.
You're just making these silly little TikToks or whatever, but I think we're doing something necessary. I really think, because if we're not there on social media trying to show people like, hey, look how much we care and look how much we know and look how much we can do for you. And if we're not there doing that, then who's there, right? Just the people who...
the bad actors.
Right? The people, and these people mean well. I don't think that they have any malicious intent. I most of the people who are putting out potentially harmful pet information, I think they truly love animals. Many of them have animals, but they don't know what they don't know, right? And they don't know how harmful it is because they don't have the background and the knowledge that we do. Yeah. And that's why it's dangerous.
Are there any specific examples you can point to? Like in our current world, the longevity side of things is getting blown out of proportion, vaccine misinformation. What's happening on the vet side of things? Yeah,
I mean, most of it mirrors human medicine,
really?
Right? A lot of it parallels, right? There are trends in human medicine, and then people think, okay, well, if I'm doing this for me and for my health, I should do it for my pet too. Right? And so we do see this kind of trickle down. So yeah, we're having a lot of the same problems, I should say, a lot of the same battles. Vaccine misinformation is huge.
Really? What are the claims that they make? Do they also say it causes autism?
No, it's pautism.
Oh, is that a thing?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't know.
I say it as a joke. There may be people who believe that it could cause mental problems in pets. I'm not sure, but we see a lot of people saying it causes immune system problems. So like autoimmune disorders. They link it to allergies, any chronic disease. They're like, oh, all of these diseases are caused by your pet having gotten the vaccine because their immune system was weakened, blah, 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 blah. We see a lot of people saying it causes cancer in pets. There's the argument that, okay, it's kind of hard, right? There's some people who are saying online that pets are living shorter lives. They used to live to be 20 to 30, which isn't true. Pets are actually living longer now than they ever have before because of all of the things that we can do for them that we couldn't do before. And so on one hand, you have people saying that, they're like, oh, pets aren't living as long because of your vaccines. But then on the other hand, you have people saying, oh, the vaccines are causing cancer and making pets live shorter lives. Both of these, for some reason, very viral things on social media. But one of the big things is that, okay, the vaccines, like since we've been doing vaccines, now more pets are getting cancer. And I'm like, yes, more pets are getting cancer now because not only are they living longer, but we're also able to diagnose it. I mean, think about 30 years ago when your pet got sick, maybe even longer than that. I mean, the 50s, 60s, it was still like a lot of farm dogs, right? And what happened to those dogs when they got sick? They
Old
just
Yeller?
died. Yeah, well, we could talk about Old Yeller. If you've never read Old Yeller and you're listening to this, please go read Old Yeller. If we're talking about the importance of vaccines, for those of you who don't know, and I don't want to ruin the book, but Old Yeller gets rabies, okay? Very sad, 100% fatal. Yeah. Okay, and Old Yeller dies, and it's horrible.
But Old Yeller doesn't die of rabies.
I don't remember. Oh yeah, behind the shed, right? And that's kind of what would happen with these pets who were sick, 50, 60 years ago. People weren't gonna do diagnostics for them. I mean, they might take them to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian didn't have diagnostics, right? Sure. Maybe they had an x-ray. Maybe, I don't know when we could start doing blood work on pets. I actually have no idea when that became a thing. But so diagnostics were more limited. I mean, we couldn't test for some of these cancers. We couldn't recognize them if we saw them. So not only were they not diagnosed, but also, people, even if they were, weren't going to do things for them. Yeah. So
it was just like old age as the cause of
Yeah,
death.
old age was the cause of death. And
Yeah.
and also, back then, on the argument of pets were living longer, people weren't recording their pets' birthdays.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Now it's so cute. You see all these birthday parties or the gotcha days or whatever. People really know. People can tell you to the day how old their pets are.
Right, yeah.
Because their pets are family. Okay. Back then, they're like, oh, we think he's 15, but he was probably like 8. He just looked rough because he was the farm dog. You know, like nobody really knew how old their pets were. I had a woman bring me a dog once and she told me the dog was 35 or so, I think it was like 32.
In spirit.
She was convinced and she said, she brought the dog to us. She said the dog hadn't had veterinary care in a very, very long time, that it was her mother's dog and her mother had passed away and she was taking over ownership of the dog. Looking at this dog, I mean, we have ways of aging pets.
The rings.
We can look at, we cut them open and, teeth, kind of joint health, their eyes, as pets age, there's changes to the eyes that you can detect. So this dog, I would have guessed, was probably like 4 or 5. So I kindly said to this woman, I said, I really truly don't think that your dog is 32 or whatever. I really think our dog is more like 5 to 6. And I think it's important that you know
Maybe
that.
she said 3 to 5.
No, she was very sure. She's like, no, my mom got this dog when I was in college. And I was like, well, maybe your mom's had multiple dogs, and has just given them the same name. Because some people do that, they just have.
Especially for children.
Right.
Try not to tell them that something
right.
happened.
I don't know. But yeah, so there is a lot of confusion about when the pet was born. And back then, before they had annual veterinary visits and records and all of these things, I can see why people thought pets were living a really long time.
You said that there's parallels in healthcare between animals and humans, and it's so true. Right now, we have people in the administration who are saying we have the worst chronic health epidemic in the United States. It's because healthcare sucks. And all we have to do is look at how good we've gotten at helping people survive acute illnesses.
Yeah.
So when they get an infection, when they get a heart attack, when they get a stroke, when they otherwise would have died with type 1 diabetes early on. So we've gotten so good at keeping them alive that they are now chronic health patients, much in the same way that pets are living longer, so they develop cancer, which is interesting in healthcare. There's this through line of if you solve one problem in health and then you live longer, something else breaks down and it creates a new problem.
Well, you can't live forever, right? So eventually something is going to.
Well, Brian Johnson would argue otherwise because he's going to live forever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, good for him. I don't want to, but I don't want to.
I also don't think it's possible. So.
Yeah. It is really tough. And it's hard too when people in a position of power are putting out or fueling this information more. And, I do agree with some of what's being said. Like, maybe we could focus on exercise and eating healthy and access to healthy food. But
that's been said for
it has, decades. Right? And here's the thing. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
These people with some of these chronic diseases that could be linked to preventable diseases like weight, right? Excess body weight. They know, right? But there's a reason they can't, and there's a reason they're not. And it would be a disservice for us to say you have this chronic disease, but you probably could just exercise and eat more. So I'm not going to do anything for you.
Exactly.
Go exercise and go eat better. And then what's going to happen to that person? Right? They might not do it. And
that argument is hard. I did an episode of this episode where I was surrounded by folks who disagreed with me and supported the administration. And there was a person who kept saying, we can solve all our problems with lifestyle changes like dietary changes, exercise. And I said, yes, we preach it. That's the first thing I recommend, unless it's obviously emergent. But not everyone can, not everyone will, not everyone wants to.
Yeah.
And that's their choice. It's bodily autonomy. We want to give people a choice.
Yes.
So how do we get people to do that thing? And they never have an answer.
And
other
will you
than
ignore
be a good example?
Yeah. Will you ignore the disease that the person has in the meantime while you're waiting for them to lose the weight? And, this is a conversation, again, there's so many parallels in animal medicine. So dogs who have really, really bad inflamed like dermatitis, right? Itchy skin disease, essentially. It's
not eczema in dogs?
No, we don't really call it. So there's, you can have dogs with dry skin, and I'm not really sure what causes eczema. I don't know much about humans, to be honest.
So eczema,
what is eczema really?
Dermatitis, atopic dermatitis.
Atopic dermatitis, yes. So we have atopic dermatitis in dogs.
Same thing,
super common, right? Now, are there ways that we can help reduce that dog's level of itch naturally? Yes, right? removing excess body weight because we know fat is inflammatory. Yep, we can do that. We can bathe the dog more. We can brush the dog more. We can wipe the dog's paws with wipes every time it's exposed to pollen, wipe its belly, wipe it off, clean it off. There are so many things pet parents can do at home to help mitigate that dog's level of itch and get them to a comfortable level. Some dogs might only need that. Some dogs, that would be like maybe like 1 in 10, I would guess. Maybe a few of them really could be controlled with like lifestyle changes, right? But many of them won't respond to that alone. They'll still need medications to control their itch and give them a good quality of life, right? There's dogs who literally will come into me and they have like scratched their skin off and they're red and they're naked and they look so sad. And we have these incredibly safe and effective treatments for atopic dermatitis now to help control a dog's level of itch. And I mean, I have seen it change lives. There are millions of dogs on these medications, but then there are groups of people who will say like, okay, well, these medications are harmful. These medications are unnecessary. Your veterinarian is prescribing these because they want to make money, right? But,
is there a vet pharma shill thing? Do they say that to you?
So they say that, right? There's a huge thing. Veterinarians are shills for big pharma. So this is one example, right?
Same
like prescribing this medication as opposed to having the owners do all those things. When in reality, we are prescribing the medication and saying, okay, let's start this medication to give your pet some relief because gosh, they look miserable. They have skin infections because they're destroying their skin barrier with all this itching and scratching and inflammation. So let's get in control of this and then see what we can control with all these other things we've mentioned. But it's also so much work. You have a big dog. I saw you did a video of giving your dog a bath that I came across. Yeah. Right? What was that? That was like a 2-hour process for you?
More easily. The drying
now imagine if your dog had a horrible skin disease and I said, great, I'm going to give you this medicated shampoo. You need to give him a bath every single day.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do that?
No shot.
Reasonably?
Yeah, no. It's
right?
impossible.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if that's the solution for a lot of these pets, I mean, that's just not realistic. Right? I wish it were. I wish none of us had to work and we could just give our dogs baths all days. Wouldn't it be lovely? But it's not practical. Right? And so these medications can really help us help pets more than ever before. And again, yet then we're told that we're shills for big pharma and we're told that we're not looking after the patient's well-being because, these things can cause cancer and all this stuff, even though again, there's no evidence to support that. We are often told that we are shills for big pharma for prescribing parasite prevention. I don't know about New York City. I'm sure there's fleas here because you have rodents. Yeah. Poor rats. I'm sure they have fleas. I'm sure they would love parasite prevention.
Sure.
But, in many places in the United States, there's heavy tick population. So like in the mountains, you have ticks here.
I mean, we're right next to Lyme, Connecticut.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Lyme disease is huge and we see it in pets too. And we have heartworm disease, which thank God humans don't get that. Because imagine if you got a mosquito bite and 6 months later there was a worm in your heart. Actually, humans can get it, but it's extremely uncommon. I don't know, if you know anything about it or if you learned about it in medical school.
No, heartworm for humans.
I am very glad. It is devastating. It is deadly, but it is easily preventable with we have prolonged released injections for dogs that don't tolerate oral medications well or who are very difficult to give medications to. We have chewable, like once a month treats that can do heartworm, fleas, and ticks. And we are often told...
I've always been curious about that because I give my dogs, I think, Simparico Trio.
Simparica Trio?
Yeah.
What did you call
I don't know exactly.
Say it again.
Simparico?
A lot of people say like Simpatico. And that's really cute.
Yeah, it is really cute.
Yeah, Simparica Trio is probably what you're giving. It's a great product.
Okay.
But...
So my question about it is, in thinking about flea and tick prevention, how, if I give it on September 1st, on September 5th, how is the flea being impacted by what I gave by now?
Like how is it still in effect? For fleas, so this is where it gets a bad thing, right? So it like disrupts the like neurotransmitter or whatever in the flea's mind. So the flea will basically have like a neurological episode and die after it bites your dog. So yes, these things are in your dog's system for a number of days, or roughly 30 days to control that for fleas and ticks. And a very, very small percentage of dogs who are already prone to seizures can have seizures if they get this medication, the isoxazoline drug family. That's what's in Simparica Trio. it can cause a seizure in dogs. Again, dogs who for some reason already have a seizure-like
Lower
disorder, right?
seizure
A lower
threshold.
seizure threshold, exactly. And so there now is this big thing saying these medications
But they're not
will give your
developing
dogs
epilepsy.
They're
They're
not
developing a
developing-
single seizure
Right. Yeah,
episode
and
and then
if-
it stopped.
That's it,
Yeah.
right? So if we give it to a dog and they have a seizure, then we say, okay, we're going to find a different acceptable product that will keep your dog safe. You might have to do like a different.
Pyrantel zinc. I gotta have. What's the other product?
There's so many. There's
okay. Oh,
so
there are.
many.
Okay.
Yeah, there are. So isoxalines, that's going to be what's in NexGard, Simparica, Credelio. But then there's the topicals. There's, Revolution, which doesn't do ticks, unfortunately. But there's, like Canine Advantix. There's Vectra. There are so many different medications. So if I have a pet that, the Simparica is nice because it's convenient. Simparica Trio. It's going to just do all the things you need. You just have to give one pill once a month. Kind of set it in your mind, forget it.
Right.
But, if the pet has a seizure or something, we find other things that we can do, things that are going to be safe for that patient. It's individualized care. It's very, very unlikely that even if your dog were to have a seizure taking these medications, that they would actually succumb
of course,
to that seizure. But again, veterinarians
And it's a
are
low
given
risk,
them-
I'm assuming.
It's extremely low.
Yeah.
It's an extremely low risk. And again, if a dog already has, if they come to me and they've had epilepsy for years, I'm obviously not going to put them on that medication, right? I'm going to, have a conversation with the owner about things we should do instead.
Are there over-the-counter dog medicines?
For fleas and ticks, yes.
Okay.
Not for heartworm disease. The reason being is that heartworms, we need to test for annually. Heartworms have developed resistance to ivermectin. So you can have breakthrough infections. And because it's very deadly, right? Like if we miss that your dog has heartworms, they can have an anaphylactic reaction taking the heartworm medication. So it's not available over the counter because, that could be really bad.
Got it.
So, yes. But we're told that we're shills for big pharma by prescribing parasite prevention. But then we see, right? Like I have seen dogs die from harmful disease, right? Horrible. And then the owners are devastated. And I'll never forget, I had one dog. She was a year old pity mix. Her human loved her. He brought her in because she was ADR, right? Ain't doing right is what we say in veterinary medicine.
Okay.
That is a it's on your problem list. It's not a diagnosis, but they come in,
Something's
the
off.
owner's like ADR, ain't doing right. That'll be on the, the chart. It's like, what's my next appointment? She's ADR. And when I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, this dog's in shock. And she was in what's called Cavel syndrome. And what happens is that your heart fills up with so many heartworms that essentially it cannot function, and the heartworms clog the heart, and then your body goes into shock and like decompensates. And the only way to treat that is to do an emergency procedure where we actually cut into the jugular vein, in surgery, and we go through and we pull the heartworms out of the dog's heart, right? So this person was your average Joe, right? That's obviously what I described as an expensive procedure. Most people aren't going to have the funds for that, especially on an emergency basis. And so he elected humane euthanasia for his dog as opposed to letting her suffer. And he was crying next to me as I'm helping this dog pass and relieving her suffering. And he just kept saying, like, this is all my fault. This is all my fault. This is all my fault. And it's just something you don't ever want to experience again, right? Like, this is before I started my social media,
This is because he didn't want to give the heartworm
He
prevention.
wasn't giving the dog the heartworm. He just didn't think it was that important.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
He was told about it at his puppy visits, didn't think it was that important, didn't understand the severity of heartworm disease and how quickly it could affect his dog. And I told him, after the fact, and I said, don't beat yourself up too badly, but use her story, you will never, ever forget to give another dog heartworm preventative,
right.
And you will tell your friends in her honor to make sure that they do not skip their dog's heartworm preventative, right?
That's really hard.
It's horrible, right? We don't ever want to see that. And so we see those things, or we see the dogs who come in with clotting, bleeding disorders, internal bleeding from some of these tick-borne diseases like Ehrlichia and Anaplasma. We see the dogs with Lyme disease. And we see
My
the
dog
dogs.
has Lyme disease.
Your dog
Bear
has Lyme
Lyme
disease?
yeah.
Were you not giving your preventative?
No, this was, I think he was born in like a very farmy environment, upstate New York, and like with ostriches. I think they had like really a wide variety of llamas and stuff.
Okay.
Maybe not ostriches, maybe it was llamas.
Sure.
But it was a very wildlife exposed community. So I think that's where it came from, because we were giving it to him and he was fine, and all of a sudden he converted, or the first time we tested, in the city.
He was
converted.
seropositive.
Yeah.
Is he just seropositive or did
He had
they
symptoms.
Okay.
They did like a confirmation test or
Perfect.
whatever it is, the secondary.
Because our tests are for antibodies.
Yeah, because
so it can
you
be
have
exposure.
the initial screening and then you have the confirmation test.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So if we get a positive snap, we say, okay, your dog's been exposed.
Yeah.
But whether or not they have clinical disease
It
requires
was
further
confirmed.
investigation.
And then
Okay.
afterwards, every time they test for
he'll
heartworm,
always be
he gets
positive.
positive. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, he'll be positive for a very, very long time. You know, anywhere from like 3 to 5 years, sometimes to life, just depending on how
And
robust his immune
I was
response
actually doing a
was.
lot of research at that time trying to figure out, this is super specific and probably the audience, like we don't care. But
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out whether or not I should treat him with doxy, given the fact that perhaps he had no symptoms.
Yeah. Well, you said he had symptoms though, so he should have
So
been treated.
he ended up
Okay.
having joint weirdness.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't
Joint
sure, did
weirdness.
he, again, because it wasn't clear
Yeah.
with a dog his size.
Yeah.
Is he just having a pulled muscle? Is his joint achy? Is it Lyme disease?
Yeah.
So you're like, you know what? Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, I would
in
have
those
treated
scenarios.
it.
So,
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, these medications, we're not making that much money from, to be honest. Like, and these days, most people are ordering them from Chewy or 1-800-PET-MEDS or whatever. And so your veterinarian is not making any money.
In that process.
I'm not making any money. I write the script, I give it to you, you take it to the pharmacy. So people say, oh, veterinarians are in it in the money, or they're shills for big pharma. They're pushing this product on my pet. That I'm like, I don't make any money from this. I just do not want to see your dog die or see your pet suffer. Like, because I have to live with it. Like I said, I'll never forget that pet that died. Like I could go to that moment at any time. There's some cases that just you cannot, as much as I almost wish I could forget. And I don't want to, because I want to honor the memory of that pet. But it stinks and I hate it. And I hate that feeling. And that's ultimately what drove me to actually start my social media. Is I was just kind of generally PETO'd. Not that case, but cases like it. You know, puppies, you hold a puppy dying from parvo, you know, I probably would relate it to being like a pediatrician, right? I don't know that I could ever do that. But I mean, yeah, right? An easily preventable disease.
For sure.
Now we have a monoclonal antibody treatment for parvo, actually. That's expensive, but extremely effective. So hopefully we won't have to see nearly as many puppies die from parvo, but we have a vaccine that's like 99% effective after like the second dose or something.
Wow.
And it's extremely safe. And people decline it, or people don't think they need it, or people think that we're just pushing these unnecessary vaccines on them. And then we have to be the ones in that situation. And it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, I don't ever want to be there. So, you know, I had enough cases like this. I think I was like 2 years out of veterinary school, and I was just kind of PO'd one day, and I was on social media and I was seeing misinformation. I was like, well, that's not right at all. I'm like, who the heck is this person? And what are their credentials? And if they're putting all this information out there, like I could do that. Yeah. You know, because in the clinic setting, I talk to maybe 20 to 30 people a day, depending on phone calls and appointments and things like that. And that's 20 to 30 people a day that I can help. But on social media, I mean, I can reach thousands of people a day.
Millions.
Yeah, I have. I've had a few that have gotten 1 million views, and it's I mean, it's a blessing. Yeah. You know, it's a blessing and a curse, because I can help, you know, millions of people prevent, or I can, you know, help them avoid that situation that other owners have had to experience. And in a selfish sense, I can keep myself from ever experiencing that again.
Very true.
So,
given that there's so many parallels, we say one of the worst habits that someone can have is smoking a pack per day of cigarettes. What's the equivalent of smoking a pack per day for a human, but for an animal?
Yeah. Well, so you can have secondhand smoke exposure in pets.
Is that the worst?
No, it's probably not. We don't see it as commonly anymore, thank goodness, right?
Okay.
Because you guys have done such a good job educating the public on, you know, the health risks of smoking. I don't know if you remember when we were in like elementary school, they would bring in like the lungs in the box.
Of course,
and I was like, oh my God, like you saw like the black ones. That was that was whatever they were doing. I hope they're still doing that, because it definitely was.
Maybe for vaping, they should bring in a popcorn lung or something.
I don't even know about vaping. That sounds, I'm sure that's the whole
Well, because now that's the new thing, sadly. Yeah.
But anyway, I have seen pets pass away, unfortunately, from secondhand smoke inhalation chronically, right? Their lungs have cancer riddled with cancer. But that's probably not the most common thing we see. I would say, honestly, if you're looking at long-term health and kind of keeping your dog as healthy as possible, as long as possible, or a cat, or whatever you have at home. But the most common thing is just weight management.
Okay.
We love our pets. And so we tend to be pretty heavy-handed with treats. Right? They're looking at you with those big eyes and you're eating something tasty and you think, oh, just one chunk of this food won't hurt them. But let's say it's a small pet, right? It's like a 15-pound dachshund, right? And so you give them a piece of your food that you're like, oh, it's just my little leftover, I'm not going to eat. But that's like a whole meal for them. And then you're still giving them their regular meal, or you're not portioning or being mindful of treats and stuff. So, I mean, the majority of dogs and cats in America now are overweight or obese. And
just like humans.
I mean, again, it all parallels. And I try to tell people a lot of times, a dog and a cat, like their love language, their love language isn't necessarily treats, it's quality time. Like they just want to spend time with you. Not on your phone, but like take them on a walk and talk to them and let them sniff. And if it's your cat, actually play with your cat. I think a lot of house cats are really, really bored. And when you come home, it's an opportunity to give them that mental stimulation that they don't get because they're safe, right? Your house cats aren't getting squished by cars, eaten by big birds, chased by dogs.
Oh my God, does that happen? Big birds eating cats?
Yeah.
Wow. I have giant turkey vultures in my house. Would I get a cat?
Probably, yeah.
Oh my God. So I can't get a cat?
Don't get a cat unless you're going
Coon.
to keep it inside, or you're going to like harness, walking on a harness.
What if I get a killer cat? Like, what are those F1 Savannah things?
Please don't get a Savannah. I can imagine.
I'm not saying I would, but I'm just.
I feel like they would be so, unless you're setting up your house like this cool cat jungle.
Okay, which
I don't think it's nice to do. Yeah. I don't think it's nice to do because those cats really need so much stimulation. But anyway, yeah, I mean, cats are also living much longer lives because they're kept safe inside. But a lot of them are bored, and a lot of people free feed their cat because it's easy. And some cats will do great. I mean, I have some cats that are free fed and they maintain a perfect body condition, usually because they have a sibling in the house who's like obese, right? Because that cat's like, I'll create all the food, don't worry. But they're bored. So the best thing you can do instead of giving your pet more food, as a symbol of your love for them, it's like, spend quality time with them, go on a walk. It's better for both of you. Or, take your cat out on a walk if they want to. You can harness train a cat, or you could get a stroller for it, or one of those cool little space backpacks. Some cats might like some cats might hate it, right? If your cat is like not about it, like don't torture your cat either. But like, there are so many things you can do to show your pet that you love them as opposed to just giving them another treat. And I think sometimes people need to be reminded of that. And then when I say that, people are like, oh yeah, like that makes tons of sense,
Yeah. Do they have an Ozempic equivalent for cats?
For cats? Yep, they are releasing it. I don't actually know if it's been released yet, but the FDA is working on approval for an Ozempic for cats.
And it's just for cats?
Just for cats so far. Okay. But I think that's better because it is a harder thing with cats. It's
interesting because it's a behavior modification medication.
Yeah.
It impacts certain biochemical markers as well. Yeah. But the behavior modification for humans is the biggest benefit.
Yeah.
But if you're, as a human, in control of your cat's diet, you're the behavior modification.
I know, right?
So
well, but if they're not going to eat the food that you put in the bowl, then that helps, right?
Yeah.
So you can be filling up the bowl and not measuring and not doing portion sizes. But now the cat's just going to actually not eat it.
Got it.
And again, that comes back to that conversation of, does that pet need that medication? Well, no, you could do all the other things that I've mentioned. You could cut back on portion sizes. You could increase exercise for your cat. You could, there's so many things you can do, but not everyone's going to do that. And also, have you tried to get a cat to exercise that doesn't want to exercise? Have you tried to exercise a cat, right?
Actually, I have almost no cat experience.
Yeah.
These guys both have cats.
Okay.
So I'm the
Some cats,
cat newbie.
I think it depends on if you're starting when your cat is like 50% overweight, right? We have cats that are coming in 18, 20 pounds and they should weigh 10. And that cat, exercising that cat might be like torture for them, right?
Because the joints hurt?
Maybe, I would assume so, but they're also not used to it. They don't want to do it. But once they're used to it, I think they'll enjoy it more and it'll be easier.
So you got to start slow.
Yeah, exactly. Same with humans, right? Again, it's so similar. Yeah. The physiology is very similar. But yeah, I think the GLP-1s could be great for a lot of those cats who are suffering from obesity because, cats they want to jump, they want to climb, they want to hunt, they want to explore, and having all that excess body weight prevents them from doing that. And then cats are at super high risk of developing diabetes from being overweight or obese. So
if your cat or dog is overweight, is it always the human's fault?
Not always, but I do think people often come to us and hope that there will be a medical problem, right? Hypothyroidism can occur if your cat has, other diseases that prevent it from exercising.
But there's not a sudden epidemic of hypothyroidism causing the majority of animals.
Usually it is us who are not, being as mindful as we should with the portion sizes.
How does one know how much to feed their animal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, based on what you're feeding, if you are going the traditional route of like kibble, the back of the bag will kind of have a guideline.
And those are accurate and valuable?
Well, no, right?
Oh,
so
they suck.
They're a great starting point, right? Okay. So I tell people, look at the back of the bag. It will make a range. And then your dog is going to have its own unique metabolism, its own unique activity level, and other factors like what, treats you might give, things like that. So you'll want to feed your pet, kind of go off that and then see how they're, use your pet as the chart is a better way to say it, right? Adjust the food to the animal, not like make the animal fit the food, if that makes sense. Yeah. For pets that need to lose weight or who are obese, I will actually calculate calories for them. There are mathematical formulas that we can actually do to say this is kind of roughly what your cat should eat, give or take, however many calories. And obviously if you start increasing exercise, we can increase a little bit more. And then I want those pets to come in for monthly weight checks.
Got it.
Right? Oftentimes people are only weighing their pet once a year when they come to the clinic.
Yeah.
I have to do weigh bear.
I mean, it's impossible to
right? Yeah, he's huge. How much does he weigh? 100 pounds?
No, 130.
130? Yeah. That's like me. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's heavy to pick up.
Yes. So, for medium to small dogs and cats, I'll tell people step on your scale, weigh yourself. Step off the scale, pick up your pet, weigh yourself with your pet, and then do the math, right?
Reasonable if you have a Chihuahua.
Yes. If not, just swing by the clinic once a month. Yeah. Just swing by the clinic once a month. And then I know it's one more thing you have to do. And even if you can't do it once a month, just more often than once a year.
Yeah.
Every 3 months, because that's so nice, because then maybe 3 months in you can be like, whoa, Bear just like suddenly lost 10 pounds and I wasn't trying to get him to lose weight. Yeah. Right. Unexplained weight loss. We know how hard it is to lose weight, right? We're talking about all these things parents can do to help their pets lose weight, and it's hard, right? And we need GLP-1s for people sometimes to lose weight because it's so hard.
Yeah.
And then so if you have sudden unexplained weight loss in any species, the red flag. Like we want to investigate that, especially if you haven't changed their food or like started, during COVID,
exercising.
Everyone was like taking their dogs on like these 4-mile hikes and stuff. And we suddenly were seeing like a lot more lameness, and we were seeing like a lot of weight loss and stuff. But it was, I would have to tell people like, okay, well, if you suddenly got up and were running 5 miles every day and you never had done that before, you might be a little sore as well. So maybe we need to cut back a little bit and like modify.
Ain't right. What was the ain't right?
Ain't doing right.
Ain't doing
ADR.
Right.
Yeah, ADR.
5 miles.
But yeah, any pet that's losing weight. And that's actually one of the big things for cats. Cats are so good at hiding illness. Cats actually only make up about 30% of like patients at a normal small and dog animal hospital. You have like 70% dogs, because they just seem fine. Sicker? They just seem fine, right? They're cat. There's
dogs
multiple
are better,
variables.
Right?
Do what?
Because dogs are better.
No. I love them all. They're all great.
Okay.
I am a dog owner, lover.
Okay.
I have always had dogs. We've had cats. Growing up, I had barn cats, and then we had a couple barn cats. They moved into the house.
Just like a free-flowing
They're cats that lived in the barn to keep the rodents away.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and back to the point about, maybe 20, 30 years ago, like we would just have some cats that just kind of like disappeared. And we're like, what happened to Blackie?
Gone.
I know, and now that I know everything that I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I failed, like I was 10, like what was I supposed to do? But like.
We have bodega cats in New York.
What's a bodega? Like they live in the bodegas?
Yeah.
But that's great. They're keeping like if I saw a cat in a restaurant, instead of being like icked out, I'd be like, oh, I feel good eating there, because rodents can actually smell cat urine and then they won't go there.
Stay away.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of cool?
Is there anything that the cat can accidentally give to a human to get them sick?
Rabies.
Well, outside of vaccine preventable.
Nah. I mean,
like
people
worms?
get icked like by cats going to the litter box and then like walking on counters and stuff. So yeah, toxo. But toxo, I mean, you really have to, the poop has to sit there for a while. The oocytes have to become active.
So if I am a pregnant woman,
yes,
do I force my partner to change the litter box?
So I'm not a human doctor. I don't want to speak.
But what's the advice you would give?
But yeah, when people come and ask me, I say just practice hygiene, right? Wear gloves if you feel more comfortable. Wash your hands. But if you're changing your cat's litter box daily, like you really don't have to be too worried about it. But yeah, I just tell people practice good hygiene. Wear gloves, wash your hands before and after. But you're more likely to get toxoplasmosis gardening than you are from changing your cat's litter box. Okay. But they don't tell pregnant women to not garden.
Yeah, we don't tell them that.
Right?
Well, our Secretary of Health and Human Services scares them about Tylenol, so.
I know. I've taken Tylenol pregnant, you know. My boys are doing great. Not to say that if they had autism, they wouldn't be doing great, but I'm just saying.
And also not to say that you're recommending everyone take Tylenol while pregnant.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not like just for fun, just take it. Exactly. Like if being pregnant is really hard. Mm-hmm. So I've been pregnant twice. This is my third pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Just being a pregnant, if you see a pregnant person in the wild, just be like so nice to them. Okay. You know, just
offer them a seat.
Offer them a seat. They might not want to take it. That's fine. They might hate you, like being like, oh, you're being like misogynist or something, but still just offer them a seat. You know, even if I'm another woman, and if I see a pregnant woman, I'm like, do you want to sit down? And it's usually actually women who offer me their seat when I'm pregnant because they've been there and they know. Yeah. But the hard part is, I think you feel almost the worst in your first trimester when no one can really tell that you're pregnant, right? You just like
from like a nausea.
Yeah, you're nauseous. You're dehydrated and water tastes really bad.
Interesting.
Why that happened? Evolution. I have what? Like
it's a flag.
Whose idea was that?
Be careful.
But yeah, water tastes really bad, so you're like dehydrated. So I would get headaches because I'm trying to work. I can't eat anything. I can't drink anything. You know, I just want to sleep like 16 hours. I'm like narcoleptic in my first trimester. So yeah, I'm at work. You know, you get a bad headache, you take a Tylenol. You know, and so I think it's really unfair to tell women not to take a Tylenol when they're pregnant.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that
but
was bad
again,
advice.
I'm not a human doctor.
No, but that was bad advice. And they realized it was bad advice, and 2 weeks later they changed it. So
well, the damage is done.
Yeah.
It's still out there. That's what I'm talking about. Once it's gotten all the views and the likes, I mean, it almost becomes a fact.
Yeah.
Right?
If you hear it often enough, it feels like a fact.
Right? Yeah. And so now it's still a thing. And there are women who are scared to take Tylenol, and I feel really bad for them because it's,
well,
like
hopefully
I said, it's
they're seeing their
enough.
doctor and having that conversation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think, again, that comes back to that's why it's important to have people with credentials on social media trying to also, you know, put out the other side of the story and provide an alternative narrative to keep people from kind of falling into those same paths and that same echo chamber.
Very true. I love that we got from kitty litter to
I don't know. I don't know where we went with that. I don't even know how we got here.
Can you tell me about the worm in his brain? No, I'm kidding.
But anyway, you're talking about cats in the bodegas. There's not many things. Toxo is one thing that people can worry about. Yeah, I mean, there are some parasites like hookworms and roundworms. Hookworms can infect humans. They get in our skin, which is like really yucky. But again, if you're wiping the counter down and, you know, it's not, the cat poop has to sit on the counter for like a day for those things to actually become an issue. So really from a hygiene standpoint, cats are great to have in your home. They're not going to infect you with anything. And there are very little to almost zero diseases that they can spread to you.
If you're younger and you want to convince your parents to get you a cat or a dog, what would be the speech you would recommend the child gives their parent?
Oh my gosh. Well, no one's ever asked me that before, but I know what I did. I put on my big puppy dog eyes and I promised that I would be really, really, really good. And I would do my homework and I would, I don't know, whatever it is that you offer, you know, what is it? Yeah. I will take care of the cat. I will clean the litter box.
But what about the benefits? Are there benefits that
I think there are huge benefits to caring for an animal. Here's the thing. If your chore as a child is to take out the trash and you don't take out the trash, what happens? You get in trouble, the house gets a little stinky, right? And your parents yell at you. But if your chore is to like feed the animals and the animals don't get fed, what happens? They could die, right? I mean, that's pretty drastic. I would hope that the parents are checking in to make sure these things are actually done. But I'm just saying, like, the level of responsibility is different. And caring for an animal, I think, is such a wonderful way to learn that responsibility and like what it's like to have people relying or depending on you. I mean, I told you a little bit, I grew up on a farm and my brothers and I were essentially slave labor in the best way, child labor laws. Like we were well cared for, but we had a lot of chores.
But that's pretty typical on a farm, right? That
the kids will help
do a
out.
lot of the work.
100%.
Early in the morning wake ups.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful for that childhood. Like we were up, my brothers and I were up at 5 a.m. And before we could have breakfast, all of the animals had to be fed first.
Wow.
Like that was the rule. Same with like when we come home, we were in sports and stuff. So we'd go to sports practice, we'd come home, we'd take care of all the animals, and then we could have dinner. And I'm so thankful. I think that's one of the reasons I tend to work as hard as I do. I don't know. Maybe I would be anyway, but it does, I think, instill in you such an
What animals were you taking care of at that point?
So we had everything. We had cows, horses, pigs, chickens, dogs, and the barn cats. We did not have sheep because we were in Arizona, so woolly animals probably would not fare well. But we did have a pygmy goat named Timmy. He was so annoying, but my family very much loved him. He was like a staple. You just gotta have a goat, right? Like you have to have some kind of other species. But we had all those, and my brothers and I, we did like 4-H and FFA. So we raised steers.
What's that?
4-H and FFA.
What does that mean?
Yeah. It's like a club for kids that are in agriculture.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you can show your
I'm
horse,
shielded from
show
this
your
lifestyle
cow.
as a New Yorker. Yeah.
I think it translates so well to becoming a veterinarian. Like
Really?
I was exposed to so much and learned so much, and I know a ton about animals, and I loved my childhood. Like I wouldn't have changed it.
Besides the dog and cat, what was your favorite animal?
Cows.
Cows.
Yeah.
Tell me about the cow.
I just love cows. They're sweet.
Are they?
Yeah.
How?
They're just nice. They'll love on you. Like you rub their
How do
neck.
they show affection?
And they don't run away from you.
They tolerate my presence.
They'll lick you. They have like a sandpapery kind of tongue, kind of like a cat. Not as rough as a cat's tongue, but they'll lick you. They'll kind of like nudge you with their head a little bit, especially if they want to be fed. Then it gets a little bit more aggressive. But they're wonderful. And now I get to talk about cows in a different way. I talk a lot about raw milk with people. I'm sure you're seeing that too. Yeah. But again, it translates to human medicine.
Listeria and salmonella, Campylobacter.
We get a lot of people who, they themselves see that there's purported benefits of drinking raw milk. So then again, they want to give those benefits to their animals that they love.
Well, that's the loophole, right? That it's sold as an animal product and then the humans just consume it too.
Well, is that how it works? I don't know.
That's what I thought. A lot of states ban the sale of it, but then what they do is they say, "Oh, this is for animal consumption only."
Well, humans
and then
are animals, right? So, I mean,
Well, they have human grade food. And animal. I'm sure there's different
I didn't know
standards.
that. So are they selling it at pet stores?
I don't know.
Like if I went to PetSmart.
No, probably not any big retailer, but maybe local ones.
Yeah. I went into a market. There's a little, just kind of like mom and pop hardware shop. That sounded cute. Down the street from where I live, and there's the USPS in the back, but it's cute. There's like a little thrift store in there, and people sell like homemade products and stuff. And in the front, there's a place where these local farmers sell like their homemade sourdough bread and things like that. Right. And I like to support, little farms because I grew up on one, so I'll buy their eggs and I'll buy some bread there. And I was a little disappointed. I saw they were selling raw goat's milk, but I understand from a business standpoint why they're doing it. Right. They're just taking this milk that they don't have to pasteurize, like one less step for them. Yeah. And then they can sell it for more money. But I would worry about the liability of it, I suppose. Okay, but it was in the human food area. So
they do that. Again, every state has different restrictions, so it's going to be state dependent. As someone who grew up around cows, as a veterinarian. Okay. As someone who grew up around cows. Yeah. As a vet. Yeah. As someone who's seen this problem unfold in a variety of ways. Yeah. Do you recommend people give their animals raw milk?
So this is exactly what I'm alluding to. I grew up with cattle. I tracked large animal in veterinary school. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be a cattle vet. Cows are my favorite animal. I did several beef cattle rotations. So more like livestock and production. And then I did quite a few dairy cattle productions. Okay. There are a reason they call them cow patties. Okay. Cow poop is very wet and it splatters. Okay. And where are the udders?
Is that because they're not eating a good diet?
No, that's how it should be that's normal.
Nature.
That is nature. That is the way that they're rumen. So they have 4 compartments of their stomach. The rumen is essentially a huge vat of fluid and it's fermentating. So their stools should be very liquidy. But where are the udders, right? The udders are right below the rectum. It's like bad design. Again, this evolutionary design of the milk is not great. And so it is extremely difficult to manage that on a microbial level, right? I mean, you can get the udders very, very clean, but they dip them. There's iodine dips and stuff that they do for the udders before, but nothing's 100%.
And it's not just during the collection. It's also transport, storage, all of that.
But yeah, after being around cows my entire life, practicing medicine on cattle, and then learning about all of the diseases, because we see it affect their offspring and stuff like that. Like we need to know about the diseases that milk can transmit to treat the neonates of these species, the babies of these species. So yeah, no, I would never, ever, like you could not get me. I would probably throw up. If somebody was like, take a sip of this raw milk, I would be like, I know way too much about what could be in there. I have been up in cows, around cows, way too close to ever drink that. And what I don't understand is like, just heat it up.
Yeah.
We're just asking you to heat it up. And people are like, then it ruins the microbiome of the milk. And I'm like, well, yes, it's going to kill all the bacteria, but then you could just take a probiotic, like drink your milk for all the nutrients that will not be changed and take a probiotic.
Get some yogurt, sauerkraut.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a disaster that we're even talking about this.
No, I know. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how it's happening and how it's effective.
I see the steps of how we got here because as a person, you might think natural is better because natural sounds better.
Yes.
And in some ways, natural could be better, but in some ways, natural can be absolutely toxic.
100%.
And when we say we want to make America healthy again, it's like, what's the again? Because before antibiotics, we would all die from stubbing our toes on a sharp object.
I think about that a lot, which is weird. But like, I think about diabetes before insulin. You're dead. Anaphylaxis before epinephrine. You're dead. Like a UTI. You get a UTI, so sorry, you're out.
Urosepsis, done.
You're out. Like, game over for you. What? You're 18, you're 20 years old.
Oh, you're having a heart attack? Let me put a cold rag on your head.
And we joke, but it is, it's very compelling.
Do you know what they did to George Washington when he was having, who knows what he was having because we didn't have the diagnostic tools. They drained his humors, which meant they made him have diarrhea, forced vomited him, and caused him to bleed. Because they thought getting rid of the excess blood or the poisonous blood was beneficial.
I recently came across, there's a new account on social media that I'm kind of in love with. And it's Adonis Eats Rocks. And I hope people follow him. They're brand new. They have like maybe 5,000 followers. But he's like, the dog is Adonis. So
it's a dog.
I don't know
if
it's a dog's account. Well, it's a dog, but there's obviously a person behind it who is a they. They are taking screenshots from these natural dog health groups on Facebook and things and just kind of being like, this is happening. And they recently came across a group that is promoting fasting.
Fasting?
For pets. And
like
there was
intermittent fasting?
No, like your dog is sick. Your dog has a tumor. You're not going to feed it until the tumor regresses. And dogs are dying.
Oh my God.
That is animal abuse. Yeah. And they recently just reported it. The people that they're fighting are trying to fight back and like get this account banned. But I'm like, everyone needs to follow this because this is what happens. This is the consequence of misinformation. Jesus. Dogs are dying from this. Again, it's like the bloodletting. Like we'll just starve the illness. We'll starve the cancer. Did you watch that Netflix series, Apple Cider Vinegar?
I know what you're talking about, but I didn't watch it.
It was so good. It's based on a true story of that. She's an Australian food blogger, and she claimed that she had a brain tumor that she cured with a whole food diet and like coffee enemas or something.
Right.
She lied. She made it all up. There was apparently
Shocker.
but people with cancer were taking her advice and she was profiting from it, and they were foregoing actual medical treatments and dying. Like but where's the accountability? That's the thing.
There is no accountability. There's no liability.
Like that's the thing. So
if they say something wrong and your pet dies, there is no accountability.
Yeah, there's no license.
If a doctor
for them to
says
lose.
something wrong, we lose our license.
Right?
So we're trying to be careful.
Right.
So. But they don't care about that because they use that to weaponize against us, that we're afraid to tell the truth for fear of our license to be taken away.
Exactly.
But the fear is because we're genuinely doing something wrong.
I know. So in addition to the raw milk, a big one that we see in veterinary medicine is raw meat-based diets for pets. And it's the same concept.
Is that like the freeze-dried patty thing?
Kind of freeze-dried is at least a little bit better. I mean, we know that listeria can survive freeze, but like it will still kill some pathogens. I forgive me if I misspeak, but I think like E. coli and Salmonella, you can freeze them out, but like Listeria, you can't.
Got it.
So it does reduce some of the risks, but not completely. There are several, foodborne pathogens that are bacterial that are deadly in pets and people from consuming raw or undercooked meat. There are also different parasites, Sarcocystis, Neospora, these things that pets can contract from eating meat and get seriously ill. And some of these things are not treatable. And every time I bring that up on social media, I'll say like, hey, really, you need to be cooking meat to safe temperatures before it's served. The argument against me is always like, oh, you're just a veterinarian. You just want me to feed my dog like dehydrated kibble to make money from big pet food. And I'm like, well, firstly, kibble is not the only alternative to feeding your dog raw meat. If you're already going through the efforts to create your dog's food at home and put this raw food in a dish with sardines or whatever else it is that you're putting in there, firstly, I hope you're making it complete and balanced. That's a whole nother thing. But just cook the meat, like broil it, bake it slowly, right? And I'm not asking you to char it down to ash. I'm just asking you to bring it to a safe temperature to eliminate the harmful pathogens and then feed it to your dog. And then your dog will still have all of the same benefits of getting this fresh food diet.
Without the risk.
And then again, people go, oh, well, if I cook the meat, I lose all the protein and then my dog's not going to get the protein. And I go, okay, well, all my meat that I eat is cooked and I'm not protein deficient. But then they go, well, dogs aren't humans. And so like, this is an argument like we cannot win. And then again,
it's not following any logic trajectory.
There's no logical trajectory. There's twists and turns. I get straw manned all the time. Yeah. And again, it comes back to you're just trying to make money by selling my dog kibble because veterinarians are paid by big pet food, apparently. I have been waiting for my royalty check. I'm like 8 years overdue. It's got to be like $1 million. I can't wait for it to come in. But I don't sell pet food.
And even if you did, that doesn't negate the problem.
Sometimes, I will make recommendations. People ask me, I say, I recommend this. If you want to, first I ask if somebody says, hey doc, what should I feed my pet? I say, how do you want to feed your pet? What do you have time for and what can you afford financially? Do you want to make your pet's food at home? If so, amazing. Kudos to you. The majority of us can't do that. I can't even make my own food at home. All right. I eat breakfast cereal, right? Like I got 2 little kids. I've got a full-time job. I'm tired. Like we eat out maybe 3 days of the week because by the time I get home from work, we're tired. Sure. I'm not going to make dinner every night. I wish I could, but reasonable. I can't. We try most of the time to make our food at home. But again, we're going to eat some processed stuff here and there. We're going to try our best. But if you have the means, if you have the money to invest in buying all the ingredients for your dogs, if you can consult with a veterinary nutritionist to make sure it's complete and balanced, I applaud you for doing that and for taking that up. Like, that's great. If that's not what you want, but you want like a medium, there are the fresh food services for pets now. So things like Farmer's Dog, or I like Just Food for Dogs a lot. Where they'll ship you frozen food and then you can defrost it, and the portion sizes are based on your dog's specific lifestyle, which I really like. I've seen a lot of dogs lose weight that way because it's a little bit more nuanced to each dog individually. And then again, if you want to feed a commercial kibble, like the majority of us do, my dog eats kibble.
Yeah, they make a lot of these claims where it's like grain-free or
that's following
100%
the keto diet in humans, right?
Yeah, so tell me about that. Are
it's just marketing.
Grains terrible for dogs?
No, it's just marketing. Okay. A lot of people will put their dog on a grain-free diet because their dog has allergies. But really only 1 in 10 dogs with an allergy will be allergic to food. And the majority of the time, a dog's food allergies are actually going to be to proteins. So chicken, beef, and soy are the most common allergens for dogs.
Which are probably the most common sources of protein.
Yeah, so people will switch their dog, to grain-free, but it's still got chicken, But, I never will chastise owners for trying.
Where did people ideate the idea that grain is bad for dogs?
Well, the keto diet.
But is there any logic at all to it? Are dogs like not in the wild supposed to eat grain?
So people say dogs should eat like wolves. But think about how long dogs have been with humans. Dogs are domesticated. So people confuse taming a feral animal for domestication. That's very different. I can go get a wolf from the wild and I can tame it. But wolf is not domesticated. It's not the same thing.
What makes it domesticated?
The evolutionary process, essentially, the years of being by our sides, right? So it's evolved differently. It's evolved. Their genome is so
a wolf,
different.
You wouldn't feed grain.
I don't know. I've never taken care of a wolf. Okay, I don't know what a wolf needs, right?
I don't know. Like, as a vet, do you have to know how to take care of every animal? But here's the thing, too, about wolves is
they're not just eating the skeletal muscle, right? When wolves hunt, they're not just eating skeletal muscle.
And such.
Right? Yeah, they're eating the GI tract, usually first, because that's the most nutritious part, right? Your small intestines are going to absorb the nutrients first. And then the liver, the kidneys. These things are actually delicacies in other countries, but in America, in pet food, they're called byproduct, and that's bad. It's very bad to give your dogs byproducts. But the thing is, people just don't know what that means. People are like, that's feathers, that's hooves, and I'm like, no. It's actually defined. You can't have like feathers and hooves and other things and like bone. Those things cannot be byproduct. Byproduct has to be like the other stuff. So like the tongue, the trachea, like these types of things can be used as byproduct. And those are actually extremely nutritious cuts of meat. Or I don't know if we call them meat, but
parts of
that's why they're byproduct, right?
Yeah.
I actually think it's huge for sustainability. Those things would otherwise just be discarded because people don't want to eat that because it sounds icky. If I was like, can I offer you this plate of small intestine? You'd be like,
a lot of cultures, like in Russian culture, they eat beef tongue a lot.
Yes.
Sheep stomach, tripe, right? Like
tripe in Hispanic cultures is really big. Menudo has like the cuts of stomach in it. But yeah, in other places, these
liver
are considered,
is a big one in some cultures.
Well, even here, people used to eat liver and onions. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those are just scary buzzwords that people use to create fear on social media, right? You know, it's the thing in humans where they say, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like riboflavin. And you're like, okay, that's a vitamin, right? Like you need that.
I love
ascorbic acid. That's vitamin C.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, get the acids out of your body. They're causing cancer, but take your vitamin C. It's like, hold on.
But that's because, again, these people they mean well. I truly think, and I always like to assume there's no malicious intent. I'm sure there's some people out there who are bad. I'm sure there's bad doctors and bad veterinarians.
Of course. And there are bad nutritional companies for dogs that put crappy stuff in their kibble.
Yes.
I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah. But here's the thing, like, if all you can afford is to give your dog like dog chow or pedigree, which is, bottom tier pet food, right?
And what makes a bottom tier?
Well, the ingredients are going to be lower quality so that those foods can be more affordable.
Okay,
right?
So what does that mean, lower quality? More organ meat?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head precisely, but like corn is usually in
like
those.
A filler ingredient.
Well, it's not a filler. Corn actually has that. So you've probably heard that on social media. People say corn is a filler.
Yeah.
A filler has zero nutritional value. Corn has a lot of nutrients if it's processed correctly. There's vitamins, there's minerals, there's protein in corn. But yeah, it's frowned upon to feed your dog corn, but it's cheap. So if you can't afford something else, but you want to give a dog a home, you can feed it one of those ingredients that has corn in it. And honestly, some dogs are going to do better on that. And I have seen dogs live to 15 and 16 eating that food, but were otherwise cared for really well by people who just, again, wanted to give a dog a home. And that's my biggest fear about all this, like, push towards, like, I call it like elitist pet parenting, right? Like the people will say, well, gosh, do better for your dog. I can't believe you're only feeding your dog chow. Like, you're a terrible pet parent. But there are so many other factors that go into whether or not you're a good pet parent, right? Again, going back to, do you spend quality time with your dog? Do you take your dog on a walk? Are you meeting your dog's basic needs, right? Does your dog have access to fresh, clean water? Does your cat have a warm, safe place to sleep at night? Are their vaccines up to date to keep them from falling sick from preventable diseases? And are they getting parasite prevention? Because I do think that is a huge factor in quality of life. Like, I would not want fleas crawling all over me, or ticks, or internal parasites. So those are the basic needs. And if you're feeding a complete and balanced diet, I will never shame you for feeding what you can afford, because all of those things that's better than being a dog in the shelter, where they're probably eating that stuff anyway, because
the shelter
they're in a shelter, right? Or they're going to be euthanized. So if we start telling people, like, you have to cook for your pet at home, which is more expensive, and you have to give them an XYZ supplements, and you have to do these things or you're not a bad pet parent, we're creating unnecessary guilt. And what's going to happen? Are people going to do all those things? No, because they can't afford to. Yeah. So less pets are going to have good homes.
I've heard this question asked to wine experts, And wines can go up.
Sommeliers.
Yes, it's
Can you say
crazy.
that? Can you say sommelier?
Yeah. Very high numbers,
Yeah.
like $1,000 bottles, $10,000 bottles. They ask them, what's a level where you're getting great wine, but you don't have to spend a fortune? And the number they say is usually like $100, and they give some examples. They say like once you're there, like you're not really getting anything special.
Okay.
What's that like for dog food? Like what is an example of a dog food where you're getting something better than whatever the bottom is, but you don't need to go higher than this?
Well, so I guess there's not a clear answer on that because it depends again on your dog's individual needs. So
True.
some dogs have disorders, or cats, maybe they have kidney disease. Maybe they were born with a dysplastic kidney. We talked about that earlier. And so they might need to eat a kidney diet to keep their kidneys healthy, right? So in some of these cases, you can't really
There's
go
a
any
medicated
lower,
diet,
right? You need that diet to keep your cat going. So prescription diets, which I do not make any money, by the way. Again, I'm writing the prescription. I'm sending you to order it from somewhere else. So I don't push those either. I recommend them from a medical standpoint as a treatment. But there are definitely levels of pet food. There's, the prescription, and there's kind of like premium, and then there's kind of like the bottom, right? And so if we're talking about premium pet food, that's going to be like Purina Pro Plan or Hill's Science Diet or Royal Canin. And people love to hate those brands because those are the big pet foods. But because they're so big, they are able to invest in all the research that I love to see. They can do lifelong feeding studies on their diets that these boutique pet foods can't do. All their foods are AAFCO certified, meaning that they meet the
complete.
Yeah, they're complete and balanced, that they meet all these requirements. And they also have higher quality assurance standards because they can monitor those foods. And so I always tell people, like, I'm not saying that maybe the food that you're feeding is bad. I just don't know as much about it. I'm happy to look into it for you. Now, there are some pet foods I don't recommend, and I'm not going to name drop them here. I don't want to.
Why?
Just quality assurance isn't as good. Research isn't as good.
So what should
maybe
one
the
look
marketing
for on the label of a food for their dog that is a warning sign? Or perhaps let's start with, what should people ignore on labels of dog foods?
So when dog food says like all natural or organic,
that means nothing.
it means nothing in terms of the nutrients.
Okay.
Right? You could still have terrible nutrients that are organic, right? Or nutrients that are not bioavailability that are organic. So just because something is organic, it doesn't make it healthier. And that's the issue you were kind of alluding to earlier. Natural isn't necessarily healthier or safer. Organic isn't easier. They are just marketing terms. There's studies in human medicine that show if they call something natural, that they can sell it for like 30% more.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just
even the current FDA commissioner was sitting in that chair, started telling me that organic foods don't use pesticides. And I had to kindly remind him that you use organic pesticides, which sometimes can be more problematic.
Yeah, actually, going back to my background in agriculture, that's something we learned about in 4-H and FFA. And I've had this conversation with pet parents because, like, no, there's no pesticides in organic food. I'm like, no, there's actually organic pesticides, which don't work as well. So there's actually more pesticides on organic food, which I'm not human medicine.
Interestingly enough, by some.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had an expert on talk about this, where they say that certain ones are not tracked because of the organizations that are tracking these things. So it's very messy.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. Yeah.
But I tell people, if that's, and again, I always ask, again, this goes back to, how do you want to feed your pet? If it is important to your moral compass, for whatever reason, to feed your pet organic, I will do my best to help you find an organic food that is going to be good for your dog or your cat or your rabbit or whatever. Well, rabbits eat hay, so like very,
it's all organic.
Yeah, it's all organic. Well, I mean, there's inorganic hay too. That's
really?
Synthetic harvesting.
Hay?
No, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Like how it's the process. In order to be organic, it has to meet certain. You have to go through some certain hoops that not everyone wants to pay for. So even though it might be exactly the same hay, one just has the label and one doesn't, but I don't know if they have organic hay, but either way, yeah.
All the comments are going to be like,
yeah, some farmer in the back, I'm with love. I come from you. I don't mean to hurt you.
You're like, I'm a 5-HHA CCC4 certified.
I'm a future farmer of America. No, it's not that. It's a national FFA. I actually had I got the national FFA degree.
What does it stand for? Can you tell me something?
It was originally the Future Farmers of America.
Oh, it was.
But now it's the National FFA organization. Yeah, I got rebranded to be more inclusive.
You said other acronyms. It wasn't just FFA.
4-H.
Oh, what is that?
Which the 4-H is, it's like hands, heart, health, and I don't remember. There's
Happiness.
a little pledge. Yeah, there's a cute little pledge that we all have to know when we're kids and we stand up. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance. But you're like, I pledge my head to greater learning or something, my heart to greater meaning. I don't remember it, but I love it so much. I really hope my boys, when they're older, might want to do something like that. But cool. I want them to be passionate about something. Right. I think it's so important. But
okay, so those are, ignore the all natural and organic. Buzzwords. What should be present?
Yeah. I also tell people to not get caught up on the ingredients. I think that's a huge thing. You'll see the people who are in the pet food store and they'll flip over the back of the bag and they're like, we're going to read the ingredient label together. And I'm like, the ingredients don't tell you anything about bioavailability of the nutrients or the nutrient quality. And that's an important nuance, right? So the nutrients can be there, but if they're not there in the right sense or the right structure, your pet can't use them.
So if they say something like whole chicken versus chicken meal, does that
chicken
make an
meal
impact for you?
Is just like it's been ground down and cooked, right? So no, like to me, I wouldn't lose any sleep over that. Okay. Like I don't think that people should either. But again, these are buzzwords. People know that, and they themselves don't understand them, so they demonize them.
Got it.
Right? Anything that's easy to misconstrue can be used to create fear. So recently, I had a puppy that came in to see me for an acute orthopedic injury, limping in its back left leg, and put the puppy just on. We did X-rays to make sure there wasn't a break or something. So the puppy got hurt at the dog park, and did X-rays. The X-ray was totally fine. So I was like, he might have just strained it, pulled it, whatever. Puppies are loose and wiggly like kids, right? Yeah. Nothing's kind of cemented down yet. And I said, come in and we'll check it again in a week. So the puppy was doing great on carprofen, which is like dog safe ibuprofen, but I could still feel some clicking or crunching in that knee. And I was talking to the owner, and she had actually come in before and had seen the associate veterinarian that I work with. And she was feeding a puppy. She wasn't feeding a puppy food. She was feeding a food that was marketed towards all life stages, but it was all organic, and it was free of synthetic vitamins and minerals, and it was free of byproducts, and it was whole foods only. And, I was kindly brought up to her too. I said, I know that the other doctor has spoken to you about this, but have you switched your puppy to a puppy food? And she said, no, I'm still feeding this brand. And again, I don't want to name drop them. I don't want to, create any bad press, but I looked it up in the exam room with her. I have computers, and I said, let's pull it up together. Let's look at it. And I said, because I asked her if it's a puppy food, and she said, no. Is this like
a calcium phosphorus ratio issue?
Yes. Okay. And EPA and DHA, think about kids, right? Like especially young infants who are growing rapidly. They need a very structured, specific diet. And it's kind of the same with puppies. And, they need to get nutrients that are very, very different from adult dogs and dogs on maintenance and dogs who are not growing. And so whenever I tell people, never feed an all life stages diet if you can avoid it, because it's a jack of all trades and a master of none. You like maybe in a situation where you have like a huge farm and you've got like 15 dogs, right? And you've got some dogs that are old and some dogs that are young or whatever, and you want to do all life stages and your dogs are doing great. Like I get that, but the majority of us have maybe 2 to 3 dogs max, maybe 1, then don't feed all life stages, feed a diet specific to your pet. So whether it's an adult maintenance or maybe it's a weight management or it's a puppy food or a large breed puppy food. Because if your dog's going to be big, I'm sure you fed Bear large breed puppy food. It's important because and people will often give their large breed puppies calcium. They're like, their bones are growing. They need more calcium. I'm like, actually, no. I want them to have less calcium than the small dog who's growing because they're growing faster. They're going to need it quicker than your dog, and I want your dog to have less so that their bones grow more slowly and more controlled, and they're less likely to have like hip dysplasia or elbow dysplasia, things like that. So sometimes it's counterintuitive, but just because these brands they'll say stuff like that, they'll say like, it's free of byproducts or it's free of synthetic vitamins and minerals, and I'm like, well, that doesn't again mean that it's healthy. Marketers make a lot of money to convince you that you need to buy something. That's their job.
I'm gonna try and summarize your point, and you tell me if I've absorbed your information well. Feed your dog whatever you can that keeps the dog comfortable and happy. And the difference between a C-tier dog food and an S-tier dog food is minimal and potentially can be even risky.
Yeah. Yeah, like some of these premium pet foods can be risky. Again, the hard thing.
Well, because the hard thing and also the boutiqueness of them means that
Yeah.
maybe the quality control can't be as good
Yeah.
because they're not feeding enough dogs or for long enough time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
sample size is
that's-
smaller.
Yeah. You have to include that in the summary of all the things that I'm saying.
Well, that's why when
I
people
feel
say like, "Oh, I don't use Johnson & Johnson deodorant." I don't know if they even have a deodorant, but they say like, "I won't use that because it definitely poisons us." I'm like, in fact, that's the one I would use because so many people use it. The sample size is so small. We would have detected the smallest
Yes.
difference in those people.
I know people say that about the recalls on pet foods. They're like, I would never feed Purina because they have a bunch of recalls. And I go, I love that they have a bunch of recalls because that means their quality assurance is super, super high. And they are catching things and acting on them before it can be problematic to the pets that eat the food. So
Yeah, there's a balance there. Like you don't want them
Right?
to have recalls all the
well,
time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, there would definitely be a red flag if it was like every batch of pet food was getting recalled, you know, but it's not that common.
Right.
It's not nearly as common as people would make it seem. And
Who does the
interestingly,
recalls? Voluntarily, or is there an agency that?
No, most of the time it's voluntary, but not all the time. I'm not entirely sure. I can't actually answer that. But we've actually seen a ton of these raw pets foods, these
Sure,
raw
sure.
meat-based diets getting recalled in the
And
last.
humans get sick off of feeding their pets the raw foods because they
Yes.
don't wash their hands.
So it is
or
a
handle
public health
foods.
risk.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it. There's also belief that it is going to contribute to the antimicrobial resistance problem because these dogs are going to be shedding bacteria in the environment, but also
They're going to
there's
get
no-
antibiotics more often.
Yes. So in food animal producing species, like especially chickens, there's an organization called FARAD, which is like the Food and Drug. Oh gosh, I should know what it is. It's FARAD, FARAD. Okay.
Sure.
It's an important acronym for veterinarians. When I'm prescribing antibiotics or medications for them, I actually have to every single time submit paperwork to FARAD for like a withdrawal time, like, you know, which means if it's a chicken, like you cannot eat this chicken or its eggs for X amount of days after they've finished this medication so that the residue is not in the food. But with chickens specifically, they're really dirty and they're like pooping everywhere. So there's a lot of antibiotics I actually can't give them because then if I give them those antibiotics in, you know, the way it's believed to work like in vivo of the chicken is that the chicken's microbiome will become more resistant to the antimicrobials they've been exposed to, and then they're shedding those hardier bacteria into the environment that we are becoming in contact with. So same thing now we need to look at with dogs eating like raw meat-based diets or even consuming raw milk and stuff is like, how can that contribute to the antimicrobial resistance problem that we are facing, which I think is pretty scary because it goes back to what are we going to do when the penicillin isn't working anymore for the UTIs and
For sure.
the sepsis.
Well,
and,
it already doesn't work great for the UTIs.
I know. And what is it? It's only like 50, no, older now, right? It's like from the 1950s
Yeah, I don't know the
or
exact
something.
timeline.
I can't remember. But I mean, I don't know. I keep thinking 2000 is like what year it is.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, oh, it's 50 years ago, 1950. And I'm like, actually, that's like 76 years ago. But it's scary. And it's something that pet parents need to be aware of. And
Follow-up question that I
Yeah.
asked before in a similar way. As a scientist and someone who was a 4-H FFA member,
Yeah.
very passionate about milk, worked on cattle,
Yeah.
treated cattle,
yeah.
loves cows.
Yeah, love
What
cows.
milk do you drink?
Oh, yeah. The pasteurized stuff.
No,
you
no,
know?
but which do you like RBST, not RBST?
Oh.
Do you look for hormone? Like what are you looking for any labels?
I'm not
when-
worried about it.
No,
I'm
okay.
truly not worried about it. My motto is evidence-based everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually an extremely indecisive person, which makes it sometimes hard to be a doctor. You have to make the decision, right? Like I have to come to you, I'm sick, I need help now.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to like pick an option. And it wasn't a problem. I didn't even anticipate it being a problem when I was in veterinary school, but it became a problem when I graduated. I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to get better at making decisions because I was so afraid of making the wrong choice.
Right.
And that's when I started leaning into like, okay, well, what does the evidence say? What does the data say? One question I always ask myself is, could I be wrong? So when I graduated veterinary school, I actually did ask myself, you know, what is my own bias around raw foods? People are asking me about it in the exam room. And I knew what I learned in school that was not great, that there were no proven benefits to feeding raw meat-based diets to dogs versus creating a home-cooked meal. And so I said, okay, well, I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for my patients and my clients who trust me. And I want to make sure I'm not misleading them. So because so many people were adamant that it's great, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to look at the data and the research. And I did. And when I do these things, I always check my own bias. I think that's super important. So I knew I was going to be biased against raw food. So I checked that and I thought, okay, I know that. So now I can go in mindful of that and try to leave that at the door.
Right.
Because why am I biased,
Well,
right?
that's what a good scientist does.
Yeah.
They try and present their biases or have people call out their biases and then work off
Or
of
you have
that.
to call off your own, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of every single research paper, it's like, here's the problems with my research because I'm biased, right? Or I did it at this institution and they're paying me.
Right.
So I sat down and I looked at it and I came to the same conclusion that the American Veterinary Medical Association and the American Animal Hospital Association has come to, that again, there are no proven benefits to feeding raw and that the risks do not or the benefits do not outweigh the risks. And so I'm like, great, cool. Now I know. And I can sit there with certainty and I'm not just regurgitating something.
Right.
Because I do genuinely care about every single patient that comes to see me. And I respect every single client that is giving me their money. So if you're paying me to give you my advice, it had better be good because that's what I would expect from my doctor.
Yeah.
Right. And it stinks. I feel like right now I'm almost at a disadvantage, especially on social media because of my credentials. Right.
That's a wild statement, huh?
For some reason, our credentials have made us not credible. Like the people are going to say, I don't trust you because you're a veterinarian. So I don't trust you with my pet's health because you're in it for the money, because you're a veterinarian. Or there's the other conspiracy theories that I'm just brainwashed. I got brainwashed when I went to veterinary school. Or veterinary school, this is a fun one. Veterinary schools are actually funded by big pet food. I'm like, you really think that they're going to teach me how to do surgery to sell pet food? Like, you really think that? I actually had to take a nutrition class in undergrad to even get into veterinary school. So my question for the conspiracy theorists is, did they fund that nutrition class as well? Like some of these conspiracies are so outlandish, but what it comes down to is when people say veterinarians are in it for the money, I can sit down with them and I can go over the number with them. And this is why data is so powerful. So do you know how many veterinary schools there are in the United States? There's 30.
There's only 30?
There are 30 accredited veterinary schools in the United States. Do you know how many medical schools there are?
375.
In the United States?
Yeah.
There's 375?
Yeah, I don't
Isn't
know.
that crazy? No, there's not. There's less.
Oh, there are?
It's like 180.
Oh, okay.
It's like 180.
I just guessed, so I have no idea.
It's 180.
Okay.
30 to 180. What is that? There's 6 times as many medical schools. Do you know how many applicants get into veterinary school? 15, less than 15%.
Wow.
Do you know the average cost of veterinary school?
No idea.
It's like $260K. Do you know the average cost of medical school?
Similar?
Yeah, it's like $290K.
Yeah.
And then
How long is vet?
4 years.
4 years also.
4 years, yeah. And then you can go on to do
And
internships
numerous
and residency.
species.
Yeah. So you have to do, 4 years of undergrad and then your 4 years of
That's a good
veterinary
question.
school.
Do you, like when you're in veterinary school, are you covering every animal? Or are there like, you have to know these 4?
So
Is there a track? Like, I'm an orthopedic
So we all
surgeon.
start out on the same track. We like the first 2 years are the same, and then you can kind of diversify or
okay.
like
Got
differentiate.
it.
I should say you can.
But then are your
differentiate.
boards always on 4 animals?
The boards are on everything. Oh my
Everything.
gosh, the chicken questions on the
parrot
board. They'd be
fish
like,
or
here's
whatever.
a picture of a chicken about to die, and here's a picture of a healthy chicken, and it's the same chicken. And you're like, oh no, like they look exactly the same. But one
How
of them
valuable is that for a New York City vet?
Well, here's the thing: is that some of us jump tracks.
Oh.
So I'm of the opinion, and this is the fun thing about opinions, is that they can never be right or wrong. They just are.
Okay.
I think it is valuable that veterinarians learn about every species because I went to veterinary school. I tracked large. I was adamant that I was going to be the cattle veterinarian. But here's the thing, right? I'm graduating.
You realize that cows aren't as lovely as you thought.
They're amazing, but farmers don't pay well.
Oh.
Right?
Okay, fair.
Because here's the thing, the cost of that cow has a commercial value, right? As much as the farmer loves that cow, the cow is not his pet. So he can only afford to pay you up to as much as that cow can produce throughout its lifespan, right? So that cow, there's like a, it's like a curve, right? Exactly. But Fifi the Chihuahua, whose owner has had her for 15 years, and she is, maybe that's the only child that person has ever had, they will spend as much as $30K on cancer treatment, right? So small animal veterinarians actually make a lot more money than large animal vets. So when I was graduating veterinary school I had $186,000 in student debt. My very first large animal job, it was a mixed animal practice. They offered to pay me $65,000 a year. which for a veterinarian, unfortunately, entry level, like large animal, that was pretty good. But
is it what large animal is cattle?
Like livestock.
Horses? Okay.
Yeah. Equine veterinarians typically specialize just horses. They get paid the least amount of money, unfortunately.
Wow.
I feel like they need to like hold out and like strong arm and get paid more. I think starting salary like an equine vet is like was like 50 or something, which is like crazy. Yeah,
that is
like you're a whole
crazy.
doctor. Now I might be wrong on that value now. It might have changed, but this was like back in 2018. So I got offered $65K, whereas the small animal job that I applied for offered me $80. And no on-call weekends and like no after hours. And I was like, I'm going to go do that for a little while. And then once my loans are paid down, I can go back to large animal.
Right.
But I didn't. I go back to large animal. But
because you fall in love with little animals?
I liked it. I was having a lot of fun.
Okay.
I always still thought I would do large animal and maybe some dogs and cats. But then I I found myself at a practice in Charleston where the doctor would see everything. And I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. And it actually
so you're
reminded
the family
me,
medicine of
like
both.
You're a vet for every pet.
Okay.
Like, and it took a little minute to get into because there's obviously a lot of stuff I had to go back and relearn. Like the physiology of species can be very different. Some medications that you can give a cat will kill a bunny and vice versa, like crazy.
Sure.
You have to know, cats are not small dogs. Dogs are not small people. And then same with all these other creatures. And birds and reptiles are so completely unique. I never, ever in a million years thought I would be like a bird and reptile vet. I actually used to be like super squeamish around like snakes, but now that's what I'm doing. And it's fun because people even bring me like pygmy goats and like little potbelly, like micro pigs and stuff. So if I hadn't learned about all of these things in veterinary school, I wouldn't have, because I would have thought I'm never going to do that.
Wow. Okay.
I'm never going to need that. But here I am now, joke's on me. I do need to know about those reptiles, and I do need to know about this chicken that looks like it's about to die and the healthy chicken, because the chickens are hard. Yeah, they don't have, there's no facial expression. Well, they can like, when they're really sick, they kind of close their eyes and they like put their head down. But like, it's good that they make us learn all the things. Yeah. But back to that point.
Yeah.
So 30 veterinary schools in the United States, 15% get in, costs about $260K. Average salary, not even starting salary, average salary of veterinarian is $140,000. What's the average salary for a doctor?
So specialty driven. So I don't know.
It is.
Such
it's
a
hard.
wide.
You Google
primary
it
care
says,
is 200-something thousand.
Okay. Yeah. So if you Google it, it says it's between 300 and 400, but it says again that's skewed because some like
if you're an
neurosurgeons,
orthopedic surgeon or ophthalmology,
100%. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is much harder to get into veterinary school than it is to get into medical school. I'm not trying to say that, there's the old age, like who's better, vets or doctors. I think it's amazing. I think you're caring for people, you're saving lives. I think it's a very selfless career either way. But if I were in it for the money, I would have gone to medical school. Like, I just want to scream that. Like,
well,
I
if you cared about the money, you'd go into business world or something.
I don't know. Like, business, right?
Finance. Not to hang out with the chicken.
I'd be a hedge fund manager. I don't know what that means, but like they make way more money than I'll ever make. And they don't have to like live with life and death decisions. They don't have to go home and cry because they lost a patient today, because there was a bad medical outcome. It's crazy. And so every time I hear people say veterinarians are in it for the money, I'm like, you don't know like what you're talking about. If I just were to give you those numbers, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But nobody listens to that.
Vets are burning out at such high rates?
Yeah, burnout amongst veterinarians is
like mental health issues are pretty high.
Yeah, so veterinarians have the highest rate now. We pass dentists, like woohoo.
Yeah, what's driving that?
Well, I think a big part of it is that we're blamed a lot for things that go wrong, even though, we offer diagnostics and people should decline them, and then the pet dies and it's our fault, or, people don't take our advice because they don't trust us, and or we're overworked and understaffed, and it's hard to have a good team in veterinary medicine that sticks around. At my current clinic, I have an awesome team. Like I love, that's all girls because vet med is mostly girls, but I love these girls.
Well, now, because that wasn't the case in the 1960s, 98% male.
It's like 80%, 85%, I think, of veterinary technicians and assistants are female. And I think like 80 to 90% of veterinary students are female. And right now, females are the majority of veterinarians, but I don't know the number. It's probably like 60%, but in the future, I mean, it's just gonna be more and more female, I think. And but I love the girls that I have now. But the issue is we are asking our veterinary nurses to do very hard things that require a lot of training, and they're getting like $25 an hour. They're doing like everything like an RN is doing. And I do not want people to think that I am. There was a huge argument online, I think about a year ago, about are veterinary nurses nurses? And I said, heck yes, they are. Like, they're phlebotomists, they're radiation techs, they're doing the x-rays, they're inducing anesthesia, they're monitoring anesthesia, they're drawing the blood, they're giving the fluids, they're monitoring vitals. Like, they're doing all of these incredible things for me. And then they're making like peanuts. And my husband has a saying where he says, pay peanuts, get monkeys. And a lot of them get burnt out and leave. So then that, makes, because, of course they're like, well, I could make more money being a nanny. And I'm tired of getting scratched by cats and bitten by dogs and yelled at by owners. So I'm going to take a break from this and I'm going to go make more money doing something else. So that happens with a lot of our really great techs. So I think, that, and I'm not trying to blame the techs for the burnout, but I'm just saying that's, one thing is it's hard to have a good team, or you're short staffed because your team is turning over all the time. And people are like, well, just pay the vet techs more. And I'm like, yeah, but then we have to raise the prices of veterinary medicine. And every time we raise prices, there's so much pushback from the general public because they think every time we raise prices, we're just increasing our profit margin, but we're not, right? It's like maintaining the same profit margin, but prices are going up from inflation, or we want to pay our team more because they deserve it. It's so nuanced, and there's so much that goes into it.
Is private equity coming in and ruining the practice yet? Because it's happening in healthcare. I'm curious.
So again, I have opinions, and my opinions are just that. They're my opinions. They are not right or wrong.
Well, it's hard to have an evidence-based take on this. This is not a widely studied topic.
Is so. I do have so much of a heart for a private practice, and I do think there is so much value and benefit to the patient care side of having the person who owns the clinic on the floor with you, because they don't want to be short staffed. So they're probably going to pay their staff a little bit better. If there's more staff in the clinic to help care for your pet, you're probably going to have a better experience there, right? If that doctor is willing to pay. I do see there being issues with private equity. The clinic that I work from is owned by a private equity group, and they bought it from, so the man I started practicing with retired and moved to New York and then like unretired. So he's actually here in the city somewhere practicing. He's a great doctor, Dr. Doug Berger. If you live in New York, you should go see him with your pets.
His name is Duck Berger?
Doug.
Oh, I was like, wow.
Doug Berger. But he founded the practice. But yeah, I mean, just as most practice owners do, he was tired. He was done with it. He wanted to move on to other things. And he sold his practice to a private equity group. And they've been really great. They've been pretty, hands off in terms of, like, they don't tell us how we can practice, but there are some issues, like they don't want to pay. We have trouble getting raises for staff when I think that they deserve it because again, they're looking at those numbers.
They're doing
more
it very
than
formulaically, probably.
Yeah, it is all very. And there are times when I'm speaking with my regional manager, who's fantastic, and she does a great job, but she's never worked in a veterinary clinic, and it shows sometimes. Like I'll bring something up to her, and she goes, "What does that matter?" And I'm like, okay. One time we were talking about seeing the small creatures, right? Like the guinea pigs and the hamsters. And she was like, well, you probably don't make really much money seeing those creatures, do you? Like no one wants to pay for those things. And I'm like, well, I just did an $800 surgery on a guinea pig last week. And I did a $1,200 workup on a rabbit the day before that who had like some dental issues going on. And like, so no, but I also was kind of like, don't look at it that way. Like, don't look at it as like the value of the pet that we're seeing, because that's where it starts to sound like veterinarians are in it for the money. And I do think that creates problems though, because again, if you're not going to pay staff, or, there's short staff, there's burnout, veterinarians are tired, they leave. Yeah. Then there's less veterinarians, then there's more burnout. It becomes like a snowball problem. I don't know the solution to it. I do think there are a lot of initiatives to improve it. I feel like it's been improving just from
what initiatives?
Just like resources for mental health and wellness and a better acceptance of like understanding that, I feel like if you had gone to your, medical director like 10 years ago and you're like, I need a break, like I'm feeling burnt out, they'd be like, suck it up and get over it. Like we're running a business, like you got to work, right? But I feel like now the conversation, people can be like, oh my gosh, take the time you need. Like there's an acknowledgement that it's serious and that it's a problem and that people aren't just trying to like shirk out of work or something. So I think people are more open and understanding and acknowledging that burnout is a real problem.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have the solution, but I do think it's getting better.
Yeah. What's this? What's the general sentiment from your industry of people saying, "Oh, every time I go to the vet, it feels like they're just padding the bill with excess tests that I don't need because it raises income"? Is there any truth to that? Is there ever been any truth to that? Is that just totally a myth?
Yeah. So we'll never recommend anything unnecessary, right? Even in a sick pet, I'll tell people like, I'm not going to order this test for your pet unless I think it's going to make a difference in what we decide to do. Like truly, like that's how I practice. And I think the majority of veterinarians would agree. People don't always see the value in things, maybe because it's not explained well. And that's actually a big passion of mine. Veterinarians are not always great communicators. Many people become veterinarians because they don't really necessarily want to work with people, right? But pets can't bring themselves to the vet. Every pet comes attached to a person, and it's the person, kind of like I went back to the pediatrician, the parent. It's the person that we have to get on board with our plan. And veterinarians aren't great at always communicating the importance of these things because we understand them. So we just say, okay, here's the things you should do for your pet because they're 5. And it's like maybe annual vaccines that need to be updated, the heartworm test, the Lyme test, a fecal screening, and annual lab work. But if you're not explaining the importance of that, of course you're going to be like, well, my pet doesn't need this. They're perfectly fine. But the amount of times that we actually see flags or markers, abnormal markers on lab work on perfectly healthy animals is a lot. Like we can see early markers of kidney problems. There's protein in the urine or something like that we can actually work up and intervene on before your dog presents 2 years later in like full-blown kidney failure. Right. And then what can you do? Not a lot. So there is value in this, but I don't think vets as a whole are great at communicating that. I do think recently there's been a push to improve the communication skills of veterinarians. I tell other vets all the time that communication is our number one procedure, right? We do it all day long. It's the most common procedure we perform, but we don't get trained on it. There's no training in veterinary school. No. Maybe
you don't
there
have
is now.
Simulated pet parents or something?
No.
I feel like that's important.
It is so important.
Because it feels like it's your number one job.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's
they give us,
what you probably spend the most time doing.
Yeah, they give us surgery training, right? So that we can go out and surgerize, right? They train us how to interpret the lab work. They train us how to do the physical exams and everything. But that's the missing link, I think. And that's where a lot of these rumors have come from. My friend actually asked me a few months ago, she's like, hey, do you think our dog Shay is overweight? And I was like, yeah, he is. She asked me nicely. I don't normally, out of the exam room, I try not to ever comment on people's pets. If they ask me, I will. But, like unsolicited advice, right? It's a great way not to make friends. And I try not to tell people I'm a vet if they don't know. Like I'll be at the dog park and I'll just hear people talking and they're giving each other like the worst pet advice ever. And I'm just sitting there like,
what's the worst advice that you hear?
Oh my God, I hear like don't spay your dog, because orthopedic issues and everything. And I'm sitting there like pyometra, mammary cancer. Like, and I'm just like, but I'm like, I'm not on the clock. I'm not getting into the weeds of this. Just don't say anything. And I was getting my nails done the other day and there were these 2 girls talking about nutrition for pets or something. And I was like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. But it's like clenching your jaw, know?
You're like my TMJ.
But yeah, I don't remember what I was even saying. Now I got distracted. What was I talking about?
You were talking about, God, I'm on the spaying and neutering because my mind started going there.
Yeah, but I was saying something about communication and my friend, she said, do you think Shay's overweight? Shay's her mom's dog. And I said, yes, Shay probably needs to lose 5 pounds. He is. And she goes, my mom told me that she went to the vet recently and they charged her $500 and they didn't do anything. And I was like, because that is what most people see, because she probably went to the vet. They came in, they took the history. They probably said, we're going to take Shay to the back now and do everything in the back. And then the doctor will come talk to you when we're done. That's the way it's been done for a really, really long time. And I think that if veterinarians want to get ahead of this trust issue, because a study in 2024 in the Journal of American Veterinary Medicine, it showed that only about 60% of pet parents trust their veterinarian. Now, you might be a glass half full kind of person. And you might say 60%, like that's great. But that means that 4 out of 10 people don't trust us. And how do we fix that? So we need to be as transparent as possible. So I think doing everything in front of the pet parent is going to be one of the best ways that we can fix that. So I'm sure that when they took Shay to the back, he probably got a full physical exam from the veterinarian. He probably got his annual vaccines. He probably got his annual blood work, and probably went home with some parasite preventative. And of course, that probably all costs like $500 to $600. That's probably pretty average for those things.
Yeah.
That's a pretty reasonable price for all those stuff that she got. But she didn't see any of it, right? So she's leaving and she's like, they didn't do anything. I also think a lot of veterinarians do have a hard time discussing the weight of pets. I do think, I don't know what happened. Maybe they did talk about it. Maybe there was a lot going on and she didn't hear. I don't know. I wasn't there. But, Shay does need to lose some weight. And I think that...
Poor Shay getting... catching strays on my podcast.
I know. I'll have to send
what
this
kind
to
of dog
his
is Shay?
mom. He's like a shelter dog.
Okay.
He looks like he's got like some lab, maybe some husky in him or something. He's like 50 pounds, like 55. Sweet dog. Really good dog. But yeah, I mean, his human is older, so he probably doesn't get quite as much exercise. And again, he probably gets too much food. So,
Sure.
But not terrible. It's just easier to stay on top of it, right?
Yeah.
So easier to modify when he's 5 pounds overweight than when he's 10 pounds overweight, etc. But the fact is, she still thought nothing happened. She still was like, I went to the vet, they charged me $500 and they didn't do anything. And that makes me want to scream. So there's a new push in the veterinary medical world towards open concept veterinary clinics. And I love it. I practice what's called fear-free veterinary medicine, which is where we try to have the most, considerate and gentle approach to every pet. Most of the time that means doing as much as we can with the pet parent, because they feel scared when suddenly their person is gone. Now, some pets are actually worse with their people, but I always...
Like defensive of them?
Yeah. Pets who like use them as like a security blanket. So like, I can't do anything for your dog if it's trying to climb inside of you, right? Like they're like climbing up their people or underneath them. So I'm like, maybe try stepping outside of the door for a minute and let me see. And sometimes that helps. But I always try first with the pet parent and I'll ask them, I'll say, are you squeamish around blood or needles? Is it going to bother you if I draw Fluffy's blood in here with you? And if they say no, then I'll try to do that in the room. And people I think worry like, well, what if the dog reacts badly to the blood draw or the cat? And I say, well, the owner should see that. Because then they'll see what we need to do to safely get the blood, right? Or maybe we can't because of how scared the pet is.
And they'll see
then
you
we
tried.
can send, they'll see that we tried, and then they'll understand why we need to send home some calming medication so that they can come back with those medications on board and try again. Because we also have to protect their mental well-being. In the olden days, we'd just be like, just hold them down and do it, you know? And now we're realizing, well, that just continues to make it worse because it's like a snowball effect. Every time your dog comes into the veterinary clinic and has a horrible experience, then the next time they come in, they're going to be like primed to it. Like they're expecting it to be horrible.
Isn't every vet experience for a dog or a cat terrible?
No.
Like they're getting a needle and they don't know, like to a human, you could say, hey, you need this needle for X, Y, and Z. They
so
can
that's
rationalize
the difference.
it.
Exactly.
But this dog's like, oh my God, I'm getting stabbed. Like, what world is that going to be a pleasant experience?
People always apologize, like if their dog is, fear reactive or their cat is like hissing or swatting. Like, I'm so sorry they're not like this at home. And I'm like, of course they're not.
Yeah.
Like, I would be like this though. Like I would be the dog that has to be sedated.
If the aliens like took you to space
right?
and they're like, we're doing this
I
for
would be
you.
fighting tooth and nail. Like I would be like, poke me and you'll die. Like I would be the dog with the muzzle on. Like I would need the calming medications. I'm already like I have like a needle phobia for me, which is, I can't watch human stuff.
Okay.
Like I have a hard time watching Grey's
no
Anatomy.
problem.
I don't know. It's like compartmentalized or something.
Is there a medical drama for vets?
No, but there should be.
Yeah, there
right?
should be.
Yeah, I know, like the pit
spinoff.
But yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But yeah, I mean, pets don't understand why we're doing all these horrible things. I don't want to say horrible things. Horrible to them, but necessary,
aware,
right?
yeah.
Like your pet is really sick. And I tell people, I'm like, honestly, sometimes, cats would rather die than accept my help, right? So they need to be fully sedated so that I can do the things that they need and not torture them.
Makes sense.
Because I do think it's torture, right? If I were to hold you down, stick a needle
without
in you
any explanation
while you're like
as to why,
screaming, that in my mind is torture.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to torture you. And I'll tell pet parents that. I'm like, I'm not going to torture your pet unless it's like, right. Like now let's say your pet is like super, super, super ill. But usually in those cases, they're not fighting. Right?
Exactly. They're ill.
But then, if I don't have the option to send them home with some pre-appointment calming medications, I will probably give them an injectable sedative in the clinic setting. Like if I really need diagnostics, like something safe, like we'll use like butorphanol or something. I don't know.
We don't use that.
You don't use that in people? Weird. Midazolam.
Sure.
Yeah. But usually I give midazolam with an opioid, which is like butorphanol. It's a good sedative. It's not great for pain relief, but it's nice to take the edge off and it works pretty quickly and it has minimal cardiovascular effects, right? Or cardiorespiratory effects. So I don't have to worry like if your cat
Botting them out.
has heart failure and I need an x-ray, but your cat is panicking, I can't help your panicking cat. And I'm not going to try to take an x-ray of a cat who's panicking if I think they're in heart failure, right? Because then their heart will just implode, like, and then nobody's helped. So in those cases, I'll do an injectable. But that's fear-free veterinary medicine. And I think that blends so nicely now for us to transition from old school veterinary medicine. We've kind of gone into this fear-free space and then take it into an open concept space where, to a reasonable degree, pet parents can, as long as it's not a health hazard, right? Like I can't have you in the x-ray room.
Yeah, I get it.
I can't have you in the surgery suite, things like that. But you can be as involved as reasonably possible. And I think if veterinarians embrace that will help so much with the veterinarians are in it for the money and veterinarians
trust us.
Yeah. And they padded the bill for all these things I didn't need. They'll see why we needed them. And I love to show people everything we did too. So like if I did an x-ray, I don't just come back and tell them what I saw on the x-ray. We pull it up in the computer in the exam room and I walk them through it. Even if it's normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's look at this nice, like that they see it, that the value is there. If I take a sample for cytology, so like maybe there's a growth and we've aspirated it, or there's we did like an impression cytology of what looks like a skin infection to see if there's yeast or bacteria or whatever. I take pictures of what we saw under the microscope because I can't take them to the microscope, but I can take the images to them. And I can be like, here's what we saw. So that they're seeing why we did that test paid off. And now that we can base our next steps off of that test.
Yeah. No,
right?
it's very logical.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious how animals get so trusting. Like Bear, when he was younger, he cut his paw, literally paw pad. So it was a really crappy location.
Yeah.
And I took him to the vet and I don't know exactly what they did, but then they wrapped it up really nice. And then when it was time to clean it, look at it, I unwrapped it and saw that they put staples in. And they obviously gave you a date of when to come back to get the staples removed. And I'm very capable of taking out the staples myself. So, and it healed well. The only issue was they put the staples in a way, like, you know how they have a unique angle to them in the way that they capture skin. So when you do the staple remover, the way it bends them, it naturally takes it out. So they did it in a way where that wasn't going to work. And
it wasn't working out.
This was not going to be nice for Bear.
Oh no.
And while he's crying and licking my hand, he's totally tolerating me taking out the staple. So like, what is he thinking that I'm doing to him?
I don't know. I think it's amazing though. I do. I think it goes back to the domestication we talked about, right? We have bred them to trust us. Yeah. And we have selected over centuries for dogs who are more docile and more trusting and more obedient, right? Sure. We've bred obedience into dogs. Because even if you had like tamed a wolf, I think a wolf would probably still bite you, even if, and then I'm like, when dogs, if I'm doing that kind of thing and the dogs are reacting aggressively or whatever, I'm like, I would totally bite me too. I get it. Right. Maybe those staples did get twisted or something if Bear was walking. Very possible, too. I want to say, because it is, I can't imagine them putting staples in a way.
Like, it was a bad area for the staple, to be honest. Like the location of it. So whether it was they put it in wrong or it ended up wrong. Yeah. It sucks for Bear.
Isn't that crazy that he would let you? I had rescued a German Shepherd when I was in veterinary school. He was a retired military working dog. Oh. Not a great pet. Yeah, but
terrible problem. Yeah. Lots of energy.
The best dog I've ever owned in my life. He was my soul dog, right? Because he went through veterinary school with me. It was my first time living by myself and he was with me and, went through some breakups and some relationships, met my husband. He bit my husband in the face and he still... The only reason I agreed to adopt this dog was that he didn't have any teeth. So
does that count?
Couldn't hurt, and but he could leave a gnarly bruise. So he got my husband like right here. My husband and I had been dating for a while at this point, and he came over to my house before I was back from the library. I was studying. I was still in veterinary school at the time, and he let himself in to my little duplex that I've been living in, and he'd been around Hugo before, and Hugo was sleeping, and he like bent down to pet him, and he just woke up and was like right in the face, you know? So I had to be very mindful of this dog. But anyway, I had to sedate this dog every single time I took him into the clinic for anything.
Wow.
I could do as much as possible at home. I could draw his blood, but I would just bring home a little tourniquet. We have like little tourniquets you can kind of squeeze over, you know, right above the elbow in a dog. I could draw his blood by myself. I could give him all his vaccines. But if I needed to take him in for anything more, I had to have my husband bring him and meet me in the parking lot, and I would sedate him. Wow. So I tell this story to people all the time, like, do not apologize to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if your dog is being bad, or your cat is swatting at me, or trying to run away, or climbing up, like, I will never be offended. It does not mean that your pet is bad. And it does not mean that you're a bad pet parent. I think a lot of people think it's like an embarrassment on them, like a lack of training. But like that dog was, again, trained like world class, like military working, like
well, there's different level. There's pet training.
Yeah. So he wasn't bred for obedience. Yeah. He was bred to work, right? But he would be so obedient, and he was so trusting of me.
Right.
But like once other people were in the mix, he was like, anyone touch me and I will, like, you know. So that, having that story and relating that to people, I think does make them more on board when I'm like, look, like the trazodone and gabapentin I've given your dog isn't enough, and they're still very reactive, and I don't want to make them worse, and I don't want to torture them, so I do need to give them some injectable sedation. And usually people are pretty hesitant the first time we do it, and then I do it, and I'm able to do like I'm able to do a full physical exam. I can, you know, draw labs, and we can trim nails and anal glands and everything, and they're like, this is the best vet visit I've ever had. And I tell people, I'm like, yes, like everyone's stress is way low. Like I have the dog fall asleep with them. I'll usually have them hold the dog when I give the injection, and then they can stay as the dog's waking up. So like they don't experience anything horrible. Like the worst thing that they'll feel is the poke in the booty when they get their injection. Sure. And
have you ever gotten attacked?
I've been bitten a few times. Yeah. Mostly it's like just like if I can't get my hands back fast enough. Luckily, I've never gotten a
rabies vaccine.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're extra vaccinated.
I am extra vaccinated against rabies, and unfortunately, so we get titers checked routinely. My titers are always low. I've had like 4 rabies vaccines. My body's like, you don't need this. Like. No, but it's some of my classmates. We have to get the rabies vaccine before we go into clinics, like when we start handling pets. Sure. They've never had to get a booster in like 10 years.
Because their titers are good.
Their titers are fine. My titers are like, nah. I'm like, what the heck? Like, why do I have to keep getting poked? I hate needles. And it does make you pretty sore. I get pretty sore after the rabies vaccine. So, yes. Fortunately, I've never had a rabies exposure.
Because that post-exposure prophylaxis regimen is tough. Well, I don't know how it is for you because you already are vaccinated.
You still get the 3.
Oh, you still
get the series of 3. Okay. Yeah, and I heard it wipes you out, but I haven't fortunately had it. But that is a real fear of mine. I mean, we are seeing
100% fatal. So.
Yeah, we're seeing resurgences of diseases in humans that we were told were eradicated. We still have rabies. People love to say, you know, a lot of these online health platforms for pets love to say, well, the canine strain of rabies has been eliminated in the United States. And it has. And that's great. But bats can still infect your dog. I mean, just because one strain is gone, rabies isn't species specific.
Right.
Not like, you know, like the flu, right? Like, and it can jump ship, but like with rabies, you can get bit by any animal carrying any strain, and then you will get rabies. Yeah. And we still have a ton of rabies in bats,
Foxes.
Rats, fox. I think raccoons.
In New Jersey, there was in my area, because I had a patient that was bitten by a loose cat, and I had to look it up, my local disease spread. And there was like the majority of domesticated rabies transmissions happens through cats.
Yeah, well, because cats, curiosity killed the cat. And then also, you know, like the rabies gets in your house from like bats or rats. And then who goes to check that out first? Your cat. Because your cat's like, woohoo, I get to hunt. Like, this is the best. And then they get the rabies. Right. And again, we talked a little bit before about cats are, you know, more stoic than dogs. They make up a smaller portion of veterinary patients because they're better at hiding illness. So you might not even notice they've been bitten until suddenly they kind of start acting weird. People don't know how to even recognize the symptoms of rabies anymore because it's not necessarily that foaming at the mouth. Like that doesn't happen until like the very end. Like it's neurological, ataxic, or they're attacking water. Like they're just ADR ain't doing right. So there was a dog who had rabies in Chicago, I think it was last month or the month before.
Oh.
So rabies is still a huge risk, and herd health matters. I mean, because of herd immunity of rabies, we were able to eradicate the canine strain of rabies, but that doesn't mean it won't come back. We're seeing a resurgence of distemper in dogs along the southern border because it was never fully eliminated like in Mexico. And now that, you know, vaccines are falling out of favor amongst pets as well, we're seeing that kind of come back.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're not seeing hepatitis. That's the other really common one that used to kill a lot of dogs. That's part of that distemper parvo combination vaccine that pets will get. We're not seeing that, at least as far as I'm aware. But I'm like, God forbid we see rabies make a comeback,
No,
because
fingers crossed that we
I mean,
don't.
it still kills thousands of people in
globally,
like India and and because they don't have the rabies laws like we have. And I mean, I get it. People are afraid. They're made to fear this rabies vaccine, and there are side effects, right? But I think the risk of side effects from a rabies vaccine, it's like 1 in 100,000 or something. Low. It's extremely low. People often say, well, what about titers? Can't we just do titer checks for rabies every year for your dog? But the problem is, as you know, titers are a snapshot in time. So just because your dog's titers are positive and high now, what about next week? Even if it's super high, we don't know. Next month. And because rabies is 100% fatal, that is why titers are not. So like if you want to do titers for distemper parvo, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Something like that, that's not as extreme or severe. But for something 100% fatal, because again, those are treatable diseases. Yeah. You can't take a chance.
For sure.
You know, we don't, and it's scary.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
Is there an explosion in the United States, at least what I'm seeing on social media, of exotic animal ownership?
Like, are you talking about Tiger King?
Well,
like that kind of exotic
that's very
animal?
large, but I've even seen like sugar gliders and monkeys, like little monkeys.
You know, I'm not sure about the statistics. I mean, people have always had those pets.
Maybe I just see them more because of social media.
Maybe because of social media. Yeah, but those are some of the things, you know, I'll see some sugar gliders.
You see them in your practice?
I've seen sugar gliders in practice. Wow, okay. Yeah, I saw, the last one I saw was a little sugar glider who got his arm like twisted around and bent backwards. He got his nails stuck in his net. They have like little little hammocks and stuff. And he twisted his arm up and around. And I told Mom I wasn't sure. It was stuck like that for a few days. So by the time she brought him into me, I was able to give him a mild sedative and get it back in place. And I was like, look, I don't know if he's going to have function in his arm. The problem with the sugar glider is you don't want to amputate because then they can't glide, right? So I said, let's put him on some anti-inflammatories and see if he regains some function in the limb. But if he's dragging it around or if he's chewing on it, we're going to have to amputate. But he made a full recovery.
Wow.
So
Go sugar glider.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I get a lot of rabbits are the third most common pet. They're considered exotics because, you know, just a lot of mainstream veterinarians won't see them.
That's all I got on
We
rabbits.
don't fortunately see a lot of tularemia, but rabbits actually carry more diseases that can affect humans than I think a dog or cat. Tularemia is a big one. But rabbits are the third most common just domestic pet after dogs and cats. So lots of rabbits, a lot of guinea pigs and hamsters are pretty common.
My mom, when I was a child, would always say, never open your mouth around a hamster or guinea pig. I don't know what she was referencing because they'd jump in your mouth. And
is that like a Russian
wives'
tale?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's really scary.
Is that a thing?
No.
Okay.
I'll go to the next time I have a hamster patient. I'm gonna bend over the exam table with my mouth and I'll send you a video and we'll find out.
Oh my
happens.
God! If it jumps in and something bad happens as a result of the story,
that's because they like to burrow. They like little tunnels and burrowing. Oh, I guess that reminds me of ferrets. Ferrets are another common. Do you know it's illegal to own ferrets in California?
Only California?
That's the only state that I'm aware of, but it's illegal to own a ferret as a pet in California. I just recently learned this.
Are they pet friendly? Not California.
Yeah,
are ferrets pet friendly?
Yeah, they
or
do
are they
great.
like more wild?
No, they do great.
They do?
They do. They steal all your stuff. They steal all your stuff and they make little nests of treasure.
That's cool.
Little treasure
like little
nests.
beavers?
Well, do beavers steal your stuff?
I don't know. Don't beavers like collect stuff to create dams?
Well, they collect like sticks or branches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. For dams.
Well, the birds in my area, they like to make nests out of weird things.
Okay.
They like will carry.
Because they're New York City birds.
Yeah, exactly. They'll take like a little smoking packet and put it into their nest.
Maybe it smells good to them.
Oh, maybe.
I would think not, though. Actually, birds are extremely sensitive to scents, so I don't know. Maybe
well, either way, they take unique pieces to make nests out of.
But yeah, I don't know. We see ferrets, but not as commonly as like rabbits, guinea pigs.
Would you recommend a ferret as a pet?
Not like as a starter pet, probably. Okay. I think if you aren't sure, like
what's the best starter pet?
Honestly, if you just want something, I would say like a cat. Honestly,
not a
I feel
fish.
like cats are. People kill fish a lot.
Oh,
people kill their fish a lot
by accident.
Yeah, and it's hard to find veterinary care for a fish too. So, yeah, maybe not changing.
Checkups?
I mean, yeah, you can take your fish to a veterinarian who will see.
What do you do?
Aquatic.
Like they just look
see,
at
I don't
it?
see fish. I don't see
go,
aquatic.
Hey.
Yeah, that's like a bridge. Maybe someday. Again, like I said, I used to say I would never see the reptiles, but now I regularly see bearded dragons.
Wow.
Leopard geckos are so cute, and they've got these like little cute hands. Have you ever seen, just Google like leopard gecko hands. Okay. For me, they're like the cutest. We get some ball pythons, and then in terms of birds, it's like the canaries and the parakeets. And then I see a lot of chickens.
And they live a really long time, birds.
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah. Those small like budgies, I think it's about 10, 15 years typically that we'll see them live. There's like parrots and stuff.
Parrots,
can live.
like 40 years or something.
I could see a parrot. We have a specialist, like an actual exotic specialist in Mount Pleasant, and you kind of need some special equipment to do, like the big parrots and stuff. So I tell, like, not just for a physical exam,
spread chlamydia.
But yes, they do.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, dirty.
Dirty birds.
No, ew. What are they doing? What are they up to? No, it's different. It's a different, but
different strain.
Yeah, different strain. But yeah, I haven't seen any in practice. I've had some African gray parrots come in, so it's probably the biggest bird, and then chickens. Of course, I get a lot of chickens. I really like the chickens. They're very sweet. They're very docile patients. They're really good.
I was thinking about getting a chicken.
I would love to have chickens, but I have an HOA, and they say no chickens because they will kind of destroy like your backyard.
Got it. What if you keep them in the pen?
Well,
they need freedom.
They should have some supervised time outside of the coop.
Because we have coyotes, so it would be problematic.
Again, yeah, supervised, right? Yeah, because the coop isn't actually necessary to keep your chickens in. Chickens will typically stay close to home. The coop is more to keep the predators out.
Yeah.
Like raccoons can really mess up some chickens. Coyotes can really mess up.
We have
chickens.
A fox that runs around.
Foxes will mess up chickens.
We had a mangy-looking fox run around.
Oh, maybe he had mange. They do get it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
and they can get heartworm disease.
Oh,
I know.
And can they spread that to bear?
So heartworm disease spreads through mosquito bites. It's a vector-borne disease.
So it wouldn't spread out.
So I mean, if that fox had heartworm and a mosquito bit the fox,
which could easily happen,
and then bit bear, then bear could get heartworm.
I got to stay on top of it.
Yeah, and then there's some people who say like, well, bear's too hairy to get heartworm. To some degree, having more hair can help, but they can still get mosquito bites. So
and we shave his belly much as we can for genital cleaning.
Yeah,
purposes,
I've seen huskies with heartworm disease, so it doesn't matter how thick that coat is.
Speaking of huskies, I got into some hot water with vets. I don't know if you saw my video that I did about my husky.
Yeah.
She unfortunately passed not too long ago. We made the decision to put her down because she had this situation where she developed a cancer, needed a leg amputated, lived for a decent amount of time as a 3-legged tripod.
How long after she had the amputation? So
2
she was
years?
12, right?
Yeah,
so then she was 14.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So
that's
she
really,
did,
really great.
And huskies, they're like super resilient, and she was happy hopping around.
Yeah, she didn't care. She could care less.
Yeah,
Dogs usually don't. It's
crazy. Right.
I mean,
they bounce back.
I think there's such an emotional part of having an amputation as a human. Right? Like you feel different. You have to adjust differently. The dogs just wake up and be like,
there's no stigma for a dog. The dog's
they're like, this is my life now. Same with enucleations. I have to have that comment. If we have to take out a pet's eye for some reason, people are like, oh my gosh. Or even their teeth, if they have, dental disease and I need to extract some teeth, people are very worried about removing a tooth. And I'm like, look, your dog's got 40 other teeth in there. Like he's not going to miss this one. And this tooth is broken and it's painful and it's dead. And like, it's not doing him any favors, but people have more of a, but you were saying, sorry. So she lived two more years.
So she lived 2 more years, but to give people a backstory in case they haven't heard it, the elevator summary of it is Siberian Husky grew up with me mostly, my dad a little bit. Then when I moved out, my dad was really lonely because my mom passed away. And I said, okay, you can be Roxy's caretaker. Yeah. And that's how I ended up getting Bear for myself.
Yeah.
As he was taking care of her, he noticed that she had a growth at age 12. which we knew of. It was there for a while. It didn't really change much.
Yeah.
And he had it examined. They said, you know what? We tested it. They did a biopsy. It's some form of cancer. I don't remember off the top of my head now. I think it's sarcoma. And they said, we should remove it. And when they removed it, my dad, before they removed it, my dad called me and asked what he should do. I said, well, ask these questions. He kind of maybe didn't ask the best questions. And they ended up removing the tumor. And then in healing, because they removed so much tissue, perhaps circulation distally was impacted. There was a theory that the bandage might have been a little bit tight that impeded circulation. And she ended up needing to have the limb amputated.
Yeah.
So it was a tough story, but the purpose of sharing it was to show people that it's very important to have a shared decision-making approach with your vet.
100%.
Never to blame the vet that's what happened in that scenario. But just to show that, look, a 12-year-old dog has a cancer. Maybe it's not the best approach to remove the cancer. And if you think it's not, ask if we don't remove it, what are the possibilities? Just so you have the entire situation kind of going into it eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Curious your take
I'm
since
really
you
sorry
saw the video.
Personally, that happened.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cancer sucks.
Absolutely.
She was 12. So am I surprised that she got cancer? No, because that's a golden year.
Yeah.
The fact that she lived 2 more years after that is incredible. So you obviously took great care of her.
Yeah, she was great.
So 14 years is fantastic for a husky. So starting with just I'm sorry. And losing a pet, especially one that was through so much with you. I mean, that makes me think of my Hugo. You know, that's your soul dog. Really, as much as Bear is great, you went through a lot more with Roxy. So there you go. So I'm sorry. That goes kind of back to what I said a while ago, where I tell people, I'm not going to test or do anything unless it's going to change what we're going to do.
Right.
So if I have a senior pet that comes in and it's grown a tumor, the first thing I will tell people is, we can test this, but I'm only going to test this if you think that you're going to want to do surgery for it, or sometimes knowledge is power. So if we think it's something that might ulcerate and like rupture open, you can know what to watch for.
Right.
But if you don't think you want to do anything about it, and maybe you'd prefer not to know, we can just monitor it, and that's fair. Because again, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Especially a growth on a limb.
And people say that's heartless to say. I don't think it's heartless. I think it's realistic.
Yeah.
Because there's healing that's involved, that's stress on the dog that's involved, risk-benefit changes.
I don't think your veterinarian would have gone into that conversation. Should your dog have needed the leg amputated for that tumor from the beginning?
The tumor was removed first.
No, that's what I'm saying. So so maybe they wouldn't have recommended even doing it if they had thought the leg would have needed to be amputated, right? Because amputating the amputating the limb on a 12-year-old dog is a very different conversation than amputating the limb on a 6-year-old dog. Because if it's a 6-year-old dog, I'm like, look, we're going to amputate the limb, and then your dog could have 6 to 8 more years to live. And so I think in my mind, that's probably very worth putting your dog through all of that stress and the recovery and the adaptation versus a 12-year-old dog. But again, I always tell people it is your pet. And there is no right or wrong answer as long as the animal's welfare is being kept in mind. Like, you're not putting your dog through something terrible for your own benefit of keeping them around, right? Like, is it going to benefit your pet? So that's a
and I feel like most people
have.
make the decision based on what makes them happy as opposed to what's for the pet. Is that
not
fair to
always,
say?
but I always remind people to be mindful of that.
Because in flipping into the medical side of things, we spend the most money healthcare wise on the last few days of life.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And sometimes at the expense of the person.
I know.
Because we want them to be around longer when in reality, I'm sometimes telling loved ones, hey, this is going to cause more harm. The benefit here, forget it, is limited. It's non-existent.
Well, you guys don't, I mean, God, humane euthanasia, you know.
Well, no, we have hospice. So we would focus on comfort as opposed to saying that let's act, even like a DNR order saying, well, let's not do chest compressions because baseline, their quality of life is terrible and they're really sick. Their heart stopped. Now, if we bring them back, quality of life drops significantly, even in someone who's healthy after their heart stops.
Yeah.
So like, what are we getting for them?
Yeah.
So we try and have those conversations.
But that's similar. And so there has been a shift in veterinary medicine, I would say, in the last like 20 years to we are in an era that we've never been in before in terms of access to specialty care. Veterinary specialists, that has boomed, right? More veterinarians have specialized. Access to veterinary specialists is therefore also more common. So there's been like in veterinary schools, now everyone teaching in veterinary school is a specialist. They've all specialized. And there's something in veterinary medicine known as the gold standard of care, right? So your dog comes in with a growth. The growth should be tested. It should be removed if possible and like gotten rid of it. But it doesn't take into account the complexities of the situation, right? So in veterinary school, a lot of these students are being taught, okay, you have to practice the gold standard so you're not like sued, right? But then you get into practice.
CYA medicine.
Yeah. And you get into pregnancy. When you get into practice and you quickly realize that that's not how the world works, right? Firstly, more than half of my clients cannot afford specialty care or do not wish to pursue specialty care for whatever reason it may be, and it is never my place to judge. And I will never judge somebody again, as long as your pet is not suffering and the welfare of your animal is looked out for. I will not judge you for not pursuing chemotherapy or surgery or whatever, right? Like as long as your pet is comfortable and happy and you are being mindful of their comfort, then I'm with you and I will support you in that. And so now veterinarians are like, whoa, we went way too hard to that gold standard extreme. And we're shifting down to what's called a spectrum of care approach, which I love. And it's actually kind of what I was doing all this time without having a name for it. It was where I was reasonably meeting people where they are at and taking, being a partner in the decision-making process for their pet. Kind of like what you said.
Or shared decision-making. That's our term for it. But you guys have the same.
But I'm loving it. Spectrum of care, right? So it's saying like, yeah, the gold standard, test the lump, remove the lump under all circumstances, like get the cancer gone, right?
Right.
That's the best thing we could do for that pet. And then chemotherapy, radiation afterwards, whatever it may need, right? But in the real world, again, it's not always practical. People can't, always afford to do all those things.
And it might not be right for the animal.
It might not be right for the animal. Or think about too, some of the aftercare that was involved. Like some people aren't able physically or mentally maybe to do some of the tasks we might need. Right? Like you have to give all these medications or do all these special baths or do all these wound checks or whatever, or come back every single day. Well, what if you don't have transportation? Or what if you are handicapped or disabled for whatever reason and you can't get back to the veterinary office every day? Or what if you have a 130-pound dog who's hard to get across town? So I love this shift towards spectrum of care approach because I think it's let veterinarians remember that like you don't have to do all of the things or you don't have to push for all of the things 100% of the time. I would just always have a conversation with the client. I'm like, hey, this could be really bad. This could not be bad. If we don't test it, we won't know. We're not going to test it if you're not going to want to do anything. But I would test it. If you think you might want to do something, then let's test it and let's find out and let's go from there. Right. So, you do the aspirate of the growth, you figure out what it is. Is it cancerous? Is it benign? And then if it's cancerous, you have to take into consideration location, right? How much tissue, can we close it? I'm guessing there was a bandage on Roxy, so maybe they weren't able to close the wound.
I didn't get to see it because it was like bandaged and wrapped with that extra bandage.
So I heard horror stories in veterinary school of bandaging. I'm afraid to bandage anything because I have actually seen a German Shepherd who had to get their limb amputated after they had like a laceration that was bandaged and then the owner didn't come back for the bandage change for like 3 days or something. And then by the time they came back, like it was, had to go. And I saw that in practice. I heard about it in vet school. Like I am hard pressed to put a bandage on anything. Like I will we're going to leave it open and it's going to ooze all over your house and I'm sorry. But I'm afraid to put a bandage on it because your pet can't tell me if their fingers feel tingly and they can't tell you. And if I have to put a bandage, I always leave the toes exposed and I tell the owners to check for swelling, to send me a picture every day. Right. Like I'm paranoid of bandages for that reason. And I don't want to say that your dog's bandage was too tight. We don't know. Yeah. There's so many things we don't know, sure. But it's scary to put a bandage on a pet. I'm like worried, but she was going back every day for checks. So it's like
not every day,
every day.
But it was, the issue was more in my mind of thinking, okay, this is a 12-year-old Siberian Husky. If you're a surgeon, this is my mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong for assuming any of this, because I'm making a lot of assumptions.
No, you're
here.
okay.
If let's say you're going in for the procedure and you see the tumor is quite invasive in that it's surrounding blood vessels. It's surrounding a lot of tissue. At some point you have to then say, oh man, me going in here is going to put really high risk for an amputation. Did we discuss that with the owner? Because this seems higher risk than initially discussed. Is that something that would happen?
I think normally,
it should,
I know it's tough to, we don't know, your dad was being communicated with, right?
Sure.
But I'm sure he divulge to you what was said, but
yeah, I mean,
it's hard. It's all third
once
party.
you send them for the surgery, it feels like they're going to get the surgery and.
Yeah, well, you can go consult with the surgeon and see what they say. It's hard talking about a growth that I didn't see. And I think the veterinarian who went to surgery probably felt very confident that they could remove it, or they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Right. I know most people, even if the plan is surgery, you get in. I've had this happen before where I saw the dog a month before. They weren't sure if they wanted to do anything. They called back last week and were like, hey, we want to go ahead and do the surgery. And they come in and the tumor's like 3 times bigger. And I'm like, okay, I need to call the owners. Right. Yeah. So, and then I'll call the owners and I'm like, things have changed. We need to have a different conversation. I can still do it, or I cannot do it. And here's why, or here's why I wouldn't recommend, or here's why I actually need to send you to a specialist now. So I think if the surgeon, the veterinarian, had a suspicion that the surgery would have resulted in death to the rest of the limb, I think they most likely would have stopped and talked about it. So I'm sure it was an outcome that no one expected. And
which
that's
happens
another
in
thing
healthcare.
that happens. And that's
time.
where we talked about burnout coming from, right? It's so easy for people to then turn around and blame the veterinarian and be like, that surgeon messed up and blah, blah, blah. But, I'm going to share a story. My brother and sister-in-law just lost their, I think 14-year-old Boston Terrier Socks. And he was her sole dog. My brother and her got Socks right before his first deployment. And they had moved across the country from Arizona to Virginia. They had just gotten married, got this puppy. They had he had 2 more deployments. They had 2 kids. They relocated 5 times. Socks was with them the whole time. Then they had a 3rd kid. And he was just the staple of the family. Great dog. Lived for Ball. Ball was life. So that's also very important to the story. Is that dog would play fetch until his little legs fell off. He was like a potato. He would play fetch until he couldn't breathe, and we'd be like, "We have to stop, or he's gonna die. He's gonna he will die
Type
for the
2
ball."
MI.
He's just gonna he's going so hard. So he grew a lump on his butt, and my sister-in-law texted me, and she's like, "Well, Socks has this weird lump, right? Kind of on his hip, just above where his back leg starts, kind of on that lower rump area. So kind of the back leg, if it's a person, you'd probably say hamstring area, but in a dog, you'd say the butt kind of.
Yeah, the glute.
The glute area, exactly. Grew a big lump. And I said, and she went to her regular veterinarian and came back and she's like, well, they said we're not going to do anything about it because he's too old. And so we're just going to keep an eye on it. And I was like, well,
what if it's an abscess or something very simple?
Usually if it's an abscess, you can feel and you can tell, right? Abscesses are going to feel squishy. They're going to feel warm. There's going to be inflammation, right? It's going to be PO'd versus a tumor. Usually.
So you're saying it was examined?
It was examined, but not tested. And so, and she told me, she's like, well, Socks is old and they said, we're probably not going to do anything about it anyway. So, and I said, well, is that what you want? Do you want to not do anything about it? Because some of these things can get really gnarly and what's this conversation have with you? And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about it because he's just older. So would we even be able to put him under anesthesia? And I was like, no, you would 100% put this dog under anesthesia. Age is not a disease. We're doing anesthetic events on 15 and 16-year-old dogs more commonly than ever now, again, because they're living longer than ever before. And we're doing dentals and mass removals and these things to extend their quality of life. And she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think it was an option, because she just made it sound like he's old. We're not going to do anything about it. So we're not going to test it. And I was like, no, that's your choice. And if that's the choice that you want to make, that is okay. At this point, he was 12. I was like, that is okay.
Reasonable. Yeah.
He is, same age. I was like, he's older. If you don't want to test it, if it is something bad, we don't have to do anything about it. And then that's okay. You're just going to keep an eye on it. And if it gets really big or if he seems painful or whatever, make another decision. And I did tell her, I said, if that is something bad, it would be difficult to remove because of the location and amputation and all that. But she goes, no, I think you're right. I want to have it tested. So they went back and they got it tested and it came back as a soft tissue sarcoma. And then they were like, well, what do we do? We're worried about, we'd have to amputate. And I said, here's the thing. Ball is life for Socks. I do not think Socks would do well transitioning to an amputee at 12. And I said, you can always go in and see if they can remove it, because, hey, maybe they can get full margins. And when it comes back, or clean margins, and when it comes back, the histopathology will show that we got clean cuts and it's low grade and it's not going to spread. And then, hey, you've cured him. So if you're willing to at least take the chance and do that initial surgery, I think that is worth a try. And I said, but again, it's also okay if you're like, I don't want to do the surgery. I don't want to do the radiation. I definitely don't want to do the surgery if they're not sure they can get clean margins. They elected to go ahead and do the surgery. Surgery was great, but unfortunately came back with dirty margins. Because again, if in order to get full margins, they would have needed to amputate. Like that was known going into it. They're like, we're going to try our best. We'll see if we can get clean margins. And if we can't, we can't. But that's as far as we're willing to go. And and I said, you need to have an end in sight. Like, because it's easy to say, well, we'll just do this. But then you get there and you're like, well, I'll do one more thing. And then, So like go in with that mindset of like, this is all we're going to do. We're going to give it a go. At least we can say then that we tried. Because I think that made her feel a lot better. I don't think she would have slept well thinking that she did nothing and just like watched it turn into something. So they sent me the histopath result, and it did say that like you could see like broad, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there was tumor cells. It was dirty all over. Like not like a little dirty, but like dirty.
Got it.
And I said, well, we're just going to have to monitor for him from here. And it was a low grade tumor. And I don't know if you shared that with the audience today, but I did watch your video and hers was low grade too. 6 months later, though, he did have metastasis to his liver. So even though, we never know how these things are going to react. So I do think if we can get the tumor off and keep it from spreading, that's great. And that is something to maybe try. But, do you want to do chemo? Do you want to do radiation? Do you want to do amputation? That's totally different. So like if I was your veterinarian and you brought Roxy into me and I was like, how far do you want to go? Do you want to try, step 8? Like I said, I think if I had come to you and said, we're going to need to amputate her leg to get this tumor off, you might not have wanted to do that to start, right? But if we had said, we can try to get it off, reasonably by just removing it, I think that would have been worth pursuing. And I think that was a really reasonable choice. And then of course there was an unexpected outcome and she did end up having to get an amputation, and that super sucks. And I'm sure the surgeon probably was also very disappointed that happened. Negative medical outcomes are like all of our worst nightmares. We're all perfectionists. We all went to medical school or veterinary school because we're overachievers, right? So like they're probably beating themselves up way more than anyone else in this scenario, unfortunately, because I've been there. But yes, anyway, Sox's tumor ended up spreading to his liver, and then he lived a while after that too. But then eventually he passed because they decided, they're like, we're not going to go back in and do an amputation. We're just not doing that for him. And I think that was extremely reasonable. So he actually just ended up passing away like last month. So So
that was 2 years after.
Like it was more like I think like 8. Like it was like over a year after the original surgery, but not a full 2 years. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've just seen so much medical intervention that was unnecessary at the end of life in human healthcare. Yeah. I'm very aware.
Very aware of it, yeah.
And saying that like, okay, a 12-year-old dog who has a tumor that has been pretty stable, if she dies in 2 years, that's probably what would happen anyway if we amputate and remove the thing. So like, if I'm buying 3 months, but then her quality of life is worse.
It's hard. And there's no right or wrong answer.
Everyone has their own.
It's hard to find that balance between what could be done and what should be done.
Right.
And it's going to be different for every single person. There's some people who are like, I absolutely cannot stand the thought of my pet like dying from this thing. So we're going to amputate. Like we're just going to not worry about it and everything's going to be fine, and that's fair. But there are some people who are like, I'd rather do nothing. And again, that is fair. And then if it starts to become a problem where the pet starts to be in pain, we act on that, So keeping the welfare of the pet at the forefront of the decision-making process.
Do you think there's certain breeds of dogs that should be banned?
Ooh, this is so controversial. I have opinions, again. I don't ever think, I don't like to ban things. Okay. Does that make sense? I feel like the worst way to get people to agree to do what you want is to force them to do it, right? I don't think anything should ever be forced on you. And I feel like banning is kind of that way. Like you make something like forbidden fruit, right? Now it's more tempting.
Tickets?
Yeah. You should wear your seatbelt. Please wear your seatbelt. I can't force you to wear your seatbelt. But like,
you can ban drinking and driving.
You can ban drinking. Yeah. Again. Okay. Still.
I'm just predicting the comments for you.
I think that, yes. Yeah, of course people are going to be like, no, you should have said that. I would like to see more initiatives to breed away from some of these bad health standards that we have selected for. So like a common breed that is targeted is French bulldogs. They do have a lot of health problems. Have you ever seen an MRI of a French bulldog's back? They are born...
Oh, it's the back. I thought you were going to say the snout.
Yeah. So intravertebral disc disease has been a classic for dachshunds. You think of a slip disc, you think of a dachshund's back. Yeah. French bulldogs are now more likely to slip a disc or have back disease, but it's different in French bulldogs because they're deformed. Their spines are deformed. Statistically, like they are born not right. And then of course, you have you've got all the same. Do you have a deformed back?
No, not born right. Sorry.
Okay, I was like, whoa, what happened to your MRI? Yeah, and then they've got all the face stuff too. Like they're way more likely to have eye problems because their eyes are bulging out. They're way more likely to overheat. They can't breathe, but we have seen a shift. People are now breeding towards that longer snout so they can breathe better. And so great, we're fixing that problem. Are we going to be able to breed towards like slightly longer backs and correct that problem too? I hope so. I don't know. I know that takes time, but I don't like to say like, oh, we need to ban French bulldogs because they are so sweet. They're full of character and they're full of life and they're so cute. And there are people who love them. And I think a lot of the people who really love the breed are open to trying to breed away from those things. It's hard though. There's that welfare question. Like French bulldogs can't have their own babies, so they have to have a C-section. So like that in and of itself is a kind of a welfare concern, right? Like you have to put a dog through a surgery and like that dog's not electing to get pregnant. So she's not electing to have surgery and recover from surgery. Like walking that line is really hard,
Fine line.
But again, there's people who love French bulldogs. I have incredible French bulldog owners. Another breed that we see a lot of issues is Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Really?
Yeah, they can have brain issues where like their brain will like bulge out, like their cerebellum. Yes, their like herniates out of the. Yeah, they also have heart disease and dental disease.
Wow,
very commonly. So they don't have as many issues as French bulldogs, but they're banned in certain countries as breeds because of that, because of their health risks. But I love them. Cavies are just pure like sugar. Like
I'm kind of sad I didn't bring Baron Rib today to the interview for a free checkup.
You should have. I would have loved to meet them. But yeah, they're great. So I would hate to say like we need to ban them. And then the pit bulls, right? People want to ban them because of the, genetic predisposition for aggression that is debatable. And I don't know, but my dog Frank, we did a DNA test on him. He was like 17 different things, 10% of which was other. And I was like, what are you, a cat? Like, I think he might be, he hates water, hates water. So, but he had like, I say 30% lab and 30% retriever, but it was like, 30% pit and 30% retriever because the pit bull was like, it was like 30% of 10 different types of like, it was like American Staffordshire Terrier and American Pit Bull, like all these different things. And then there was like the other 30% was like Labrador Retriever, Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and like Golden Retriever. Like he's literally
like a real dog.
Everything. Yeah. People ask me what he is. I'm like, he's a South Carolina street special, but he would be like technically banned, right? Because he's got like that pity. He's got like a wider face. I don't know that he'd be banned because he doesn't have like the bully look to him really, but like some of those dogs that I see are like the sweetest, kindest, like most docile. Like I could like roll them over and slice them open and they'd be like so happy to be in my clinic, right? And it's terrible to say that, but like the trust and the love and the obedience. And then I've seen golden retrievers that have tried to bite me. So like I don't think it's fair to kind of blanket ban a breed, but some veterinarians would disagree with me and some animal welfare advocates would probably disagree with me, again, for the French bulldogs and the things like that. Like the German Shepherds were bred for a while to have that really sloped back and they were all having hip problems and we've turned away from that, but those are easier to fix because it's like one thing. But we could have easily been like, okay, we're banning German Shepherds now, and like German Shepherds bite people, Hugo bit people. So like they're sometimes
it's messy.
Yeah. German Shepherds are big biters in the veterinary clinic because they're too smart, I think, right? Like they're like, I'm not going to lay here and let you do this to me. I'm going to eat you. So, yeah, I think that's a really loaded question. I'm probably going to get hate for that, but I think you should share it because I think it's important that people know about the health issues.
There's different reasons why people get dogs.
Well, I do think though that comes back to people need to research if they want a specific breed. Like if you don't want to go to the shelter and pick up a dog, which I think you should, if you don't have like a specific attachment or you want something specific or you have a specific family scenario or whatever, go adopt or rescue or something if you can, because there are so many deserving dogs in the shelter. But if your heart is set on a breed and you grew up with one and you just have a love for one, I would hate to see, some people say like breeding in general should be banned, but I would really hate to see a lot of these breeds gone, right? Like I would be sad if I never saw like another Newfie or another Golden Retriever, or I would be sad if I never saw another Cavalier because I love that variation in the breed. I see where they're coming from. I do think maybe it should be more regulated, like a certain amount of litters a year or things like that. Or like maybe breeders should have to get some kind of certification or whatever to prove like I don't know.
Some regulation.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some more. I think I would like more regulation of it, but research the breed before you buy.
Is it the same for cats? Are there cat breeds that you're like,
there
don't
are
get?
cat breeds, so Scottish folds will have a lot
they
of
have
problems.
the cartilage ear thing.
Yeah, they have the little folded down
Aren't they
ears.
banned in some countries?
Yeah, they have heart problems and some other stuff. There are brachycephalic cat breeds like the Persians and everything that can have really
and
squishy.
the hairless ones, aren't they?
The hairless ones actually are pretty healthy.
Oh,
I
they
think
are.
generally.
Okay.
Generally, yeah. I have several that I haven't had any. Maybe there is something I'm forgetting. Sphinxes, yeah. But there are many breeds of cats as well. I couldn't name all the breeds. I couldn't name all the breeds of dogs. I posted a reel recently. I was doing an exam on a chicken, and I was like, I don't even know what breed of chicken this is. And people were like, wow, what a horrible chicken veterinarian you must be because you don't know all the breeds of chicken. I'm like, I don't know all the breeds of dog.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Right?
But especially once you get into like the regional
Yes,
dogs
like I think
in
it's
England.
important to know the more common and popular ones or the ones that you see regularly.
I mean, it's like the same when people say you don't know this medication.
I know.
I'm like, are you joking? Do you know how many new medications there are per day and the names of them?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many breeds of dogs. There's so many breeds of cats, but cats, I feel like.
Do cats and dogs generally get along? If introduced early, you'll probably.
I think so. I mean, I have some people who have both, and they get along great. I definitely have some that avoid, like clients who say like they have nothing to do with each other.
Newfies get cats as friends?
I would recommend a very supervised and controlled introduction and see how it goes. Okay. Maybe start with a kitten, so that because kittens are.
But it has to be a giant one, so it's on like a Maine Coon.
You could get a Maine Coon, yeah,
so they can keep each other.
Yeah, there you go.
At bay.
Yeah, I think they'd have fun. Maine Coons are very dog-like. Like they have a very like outgoing personality as far as cats can be. So a lot of people will like a lot of dog people can step into cats with a Maine Coon because
but you can't train a cat the same way you could train a dog.
You can train a cat. One of my friends.
Well, not like sit, stay, but in terms of like don't destroy this couch. If they want to destroy the couch.
If the cat is destroying the couch, it's because the cat needs somewhere to stretch and to do its claws, and you're not giving it the right thing most of the time.
If I give it the right thing, it won't destroy the Restoration Hardware couch.
Well, depends. So. Right? If the Restoration Hardware couch is the right height and the perfect texture for that deep stretch in your cat's back, but usually that's what happens is people are like, well, I got my cat a cat tower and it's like firstly it's like this high and the cat's like
so you can say like, don't do this to the cat. They might listen.
So yeah, some cats are usually trying to tell you what they need. So people are like, my cat peed outside of the litter box because it's mad at me. And I'm like, well, maybe the litter box is in the wrong place. Maybe you don't have enough litter boxes. Maybe you have the wrong kind of litter. Maybe your litter box, like people want to put the litter box where it's convenient for us, right? But maybe the cat doesn't like where that is. And so it's not going to use it in there. The cat might use your couch because it wants to be in the living room where everyone else is. And it wants to hang out with you and you're on the couch. So your cat's going to stretch its back on your couch, right? Because your cat tree might be in a spot that is convenient and aesthetically pleasing for you, right?
Not the cat.
So sometimes I'll tell people like, get a post, wrap it in the same as close of texture as you can get to your couch and put that right there.
I thought it would be the opposite.
No,
because then aren't you training it to like love scratching this type of fabric?
If you train it to use the other thing instead, then it'll use that, right?
Okay, got it.
Because it likes the texture.
Okay, got it.
So, and then you can, in the meantime, get fabric guards. Like they make guards for couches to keep your cat from scratching it. Yeah. So you got to think like a cat. But cats are actually very trainable. My friend is a dog trainer in Texas and he taught his cat to ride the Roomba. Yeah.
Wow.
Like you just like the surfing, same exact
Roomba
way.
Surfing.
Yeah. It rides the Roomba, which I don't know what the purpose of that is other than it brings everyone joy and the cat's happy because it gets treats. So like you can, I've got people who've trained their cat to like spin in a circle and all these things. Cats are extremely smart.
Oh, okay.
Now the problem is cats are also too smart. Sometimes they're like, why would I do that for you?
Can you said the birds can sometimes kidnap cats. Can vultures steal a Maine Coon or is that too big?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the dexterity of a vulture. It's never been studied. I would need a research paper on that. Evidence-based everything. I can't give you a solid answer unless I will go see. I don't think that's been tested. I wanted to ask you, like, what's the airspeed velocity of a sparrow? Like, that just made me think of, like, if you grasp it by the husk Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's kind of a age.
That's funny.
joke.
All right. So maybe we'll leave that as the open-ended question for people if I'll
Sure.
get a cat.
If anyone can answer.
Because I did a really bad thing. In one of my videos, I said if I get a certain number of likes on a video, I'd get Bear a friend of a cat.
and you're thinking about getting a cat?
I think it got enough likes and people are
Okay.
really mad that I didn't get the cat yet.
You need to, well, if you said you're going to do it, you have to be a man of your word and you need to get the cat. It's important.
But like I have to make sure Bear consents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he
100%.
is the one that has to live
Well,
out
if
his
you're
senior
looking into
years
like a
with the
Maine
cat.
Coon, you could look into like a Maine Coon rescue and maybe they have some that are already dog friendly.
Oh, okay.
You know, but if I understand if you want a kitten and especially around dogs, you know, you want to make sure it's going to work out. But I will always advocate.
Can I
for,
bring my dogs to the shelter to play with the cat and see if they get along?
You can ask the shelter.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask them. I think so. I mean, most shelters have like greeting rooms. So like when I went to the shelter to meet Frank, you know, they put us in a room with me and my family. And, you know, my son was 12 months old at the time. And he was like, get this puppy away from me because the puppy's like sniffing all up on him.
Yeah.
But it was really cute. We like played in there for a little while just to make sure it was a good fit. And I think people will usually bring their other pets and then they'll maybe, you know, if you have other pets, you might take the dog home to foster for a while to make sure that works out because it's different in a home setting where there's territory and boundaries and stuff already kind of set up. So you can always ask.
For sure.
Never hurts to ask.
Well, I could say that you truly do live up to the handle. You are the honest vet.
I try.
Thank you for answering all of our questions today. Where can people follow along your journey?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram mainly as The Honest Vet. You can also find me on TikTok and YouTube with that username as well.
Cool. Any projects on the horizon you want to get people excited about?
You know,
this
is a day by day thing for me. It's truly I go online and I talk about stuff that I saw that day or things that are relevant to me. Maybe I need to be more do bigger, greater things with it, but I'm happy with the size it is now.
Awesome.
So,
and do you want people to know where you work in case they want to seek you out?
Yeah, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So if you have pets in Charleston and if you're looking for a vet, please come see me at All Creatures Veterinary Clinic.
Yeah. Boom. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That was
a lot of
right?
fun. Yeah.
Click here to see what it takes to actually give Bear a bath. It's harder than you may think. And as always, stay happy and healthy.